Chapter 442. Counterattack Kid. Lu Che's group of 5 is already outside the valley. You'd best hide for now and catch them off guard, Xiao He warned in his mind. I'd like to see how strong Lu Che's group is. It won't be that easy to kill me, Zhuowen. As he spoke, Zhuowen's figure flashed. He turned around and hid behind a huge rock on his left side. Soon after, countless mental energy enveloped his body in his mud pill palace, concealing his aura as much as possible. At the same time, he waved his right hand, and the indifferent reverse spirit puppet appeared beside him. Zhuowen concealed his aura and silently waited for Lu Che's group to arrive. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Around 10 breaths of time later, 5 figures suddenly appeared in the dark and narrow valley. The one in the lead was the red-haired youth Lu Che. Apart from Lu Che, the other 4 were all members of King Chu's group. 2 of them had rather strong auras, so they should be the 2 ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators from King Chu's group. The other 2 had weaker auras, but they were still half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators. The 5 of them arrived in the valley and looked around the dark valley. They all frowned. What's going on? Zhuowen's aura actually disappeared from this valley? Lu Che frowned. Could it be that Zhuowen discovered us and hid his aura to escape? A blue-clothed youth beside Lu Che said. This youth was one of the ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators. His strength was second only to Lu Che, and he was already at the late stage of the ultimate Emperor Realm. The other ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator was a young white-clothed youth. He was slightly weaker than the blue-clothed youth, and was around the mid-stage of the ultimate Emperor Realm. That Zhuowen's cultivation is at most at the second stage of the ultimate Emperor Realm. Moreover, we've been following him from a distance of 500 meters. With that kid's cultivation, he shouldn't have discovered us. Lu Che's frown deepened as he spoke with displeasure. Could it be that Zhuowen discovered the abnormality in the jade slip of the limitless art of startling cloud? Thus, he threw the jade slip into the valley and ran away. The white-clothed youth suddenly interrupted. Lu Che shook his head when he heard that. He sneered. The limitless startling cloud technique is still a king-tier armor skill. Do you think Zhuowen would be willing to give it up? Even if I obtained that king-tier armor skill, I probably wouldn't give it up even if I died. What should we do now? Since we can't sense the aura on the jade slip, we can't find the direction. I don't know where to start now, the blue-clothed youth said helplessly as he spread his hands. Since Zhuowen's aura disappeared in this valley, it means that the little bastard should be hiding in some corner of this valley. Let's search. Search every corner of this valley. Lu Che coldly snorted. Yes. Lu Che was their captain, so the blue-clothed youth and the others naturally wouldn't disobey. They cupped their hands and turned into 4 blurs as they began to search the valley. Lu Che stood in the center of the valley and silently observed their actions. He knew that Zhuowen wasn't weak. If the blue-clothed youth and the others encountered Zhuowen, they would definitely suffer a great loss. They might even be killed in an instant. Thus, he was constantly observing their actions. He was waiting for Zhuowen to make a move so that he could reinforce them in time. Kid, the 4 of them have split up. Now's the best chance to take them down one by one. Xiao He's voice suddenly rang out in his head. Zhuowen, who was hiding behind the rock, nodded slightly. With a thought, a trace of red light appeared in the eyes of the stiff reverse spirit puppet beside him. Then, under Zhuowen's command, it suddenly leapt out and shot towards the nearest half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Something's happening. Lu Che's pupil shrank slightly. He immediately saw a brawny figure with scarlet eyes to his left. The figure shot out like a primordial beast and slammed a gigantic palm into the half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator's body with great force. The powerful force instantly tore the surrounding air apart, turning it into countless terrifying cyclones that spun endlessly. The half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator's face instantly turned ghastly pale when he sensed the monstrous force above him. He knew that this force wasn't something he could withstand at all. Due to the terror in his heart, he actually froze on the spot for a moment. Damn it! Get out of the way! Lu Che roared angrily. He took a step forward and shot towards the left. However, it was too late. He was 100 meters away from the reverse spirit puppet. Even if he used his movement technique at full speed, it would still take him a breath's worth of time. A breath's worth of time was enough for the reverse spirit puppet to kill the half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, who was so frightened that he couldn't move. Rumble. The tremendous force, accompanied by a powerful pressure, slammed into the cultivator with a loud rumble. With a muffled sound, the cultivator spat out a large mouthful of blood and turned into a bloody mist under the force of the force. Lu Che was already within 10 meters of the cultivator, but he could only watch helplessly as the cultivator turned into a cruel bloody mist. The aftershock of the force spread along with the bloody mist onto Lu Che's body, causing him to involuntarily take a few steps back. His gaze was extremely gloomy. The other 3 people not far from here also noticed the movement here. When the 3 of them saw that the warrior had turned into a bloody mist, they were instantly enraged and rushed straight towards the reverse spirit puppet. Bastard! Zhuan, I want you dead! Lu Che roared angrily. A powerful aura surged out from his body as he turned into a human-shaped whirlwind and blasted towards the reverse spirit puppet. The valley was extremely dark and narrow. Coupled with the fact that Lu Che was currently burning with rage, he didn't notice anything strange about the reverse spirit puppet. He only thought that the scarlet-eyed puppet was Zhuan. Rumble. Lu Che threw out a punch, his face full of anger. He hadn't expected to lose a comrade so soon after arriving. Although Tyrant Chu City had a deep foundation, it wasn't easy to raise a half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. The reverse spirit puppet wasn't afraid. Its scarlet red eyes narrowed. Under Zhuan's will, it punched out. Bang! The 2 fists collided. Countless forces of qi overflowed like a storm. The ground collapsed and shattered, gravel spiraling upwards. Thump! Thump! What surprised Lu Che was that the reverse spirit puppet was actually sent flying during the confrontation with him, and was finally embedded into the rock wall in front of him. Why is this Zhuan so weak? With his strength he shouldn't be so weak, right? Lu Che was puzzled when he saw the reverse spirit puppet in front of him in such a sorry state. However, he soon discovered that the figure embedded in the rock wall in front of him didn't look like the Zhuan in the training square. To be precise, the figure was more muscular, and its eyes were like a wild beast's, filled with a scarlet red color. It's not Zhuan? Who is it? Lu Che exclaimed in a low voice when he saw the reverse spirit puppet's strange state. Lu Che, it's not that easy to kill me, Zhuan. A loud laugh suddenly rang out from behind Lu Che. Lu Che's pupils constricted as he abruptly turned around. A youth wielding a blood-red spear with 2 pairs of lightning wings on his back had unknowingly arrived beside another half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Puffed! The long spear was like a blood-red dragon, leaving behind strange traces in the void. A mournful bloody light flashed past the cultivator's head, and then a head with a ferocious face soared into the sky. Even in death, the cultivator didn't know when Zhuan had appeared in front of him. Bastard Zhuan, how dare you kill one of King Chu City's men? Do you believe that Master Wuji will directly destroy your vine armor city? Lu Che was furious. He took a step forward, wanting to stop Zhuan. However, a muscular figure blocked his way once again. It was the reverse spirit puppet that Lu Che had just repelled. Although the reverse spirit puppet only had the strength of a peak ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, it was still created by the famous Wan Yen sect in ancient times. Its material was as hard as iron, and was indestructible. Even a third-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator might not necessarily be able to shatter the reverse spirit puppet's body. Lu Che was only a first-stage ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Naturally, he didn't have the ability to break the reverse spirit puppet's sturdy body. Bastard! Get out of my way! Lu Che was furious. He sent the reverse spirit puppet flying with a palm strike. However, under the control of Zhuan, the reverse spirit puppet relied on its sturdy body to obstruct Lu Che again and again. It actually managed to stall Lu Che for a while. Destroy our vine armor city? Hee hee. That depends on whether you can walk out of the dark forest. Zhuan laughed loudly. Holding the blood-red spear in his hand, he took a step forward and turned into a ball of terrifying lightning. He directly shot towards the remaining 2 youths in blue and white. These 2 were the only ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators in Chuba City. They were geniuses second only to Lu Che. If these 2 died, the Wuji Elder would probably fly into a rage. The two youths not far away also saw Zhuowen rushing towards them. Their expressions changed drastically. They knew that Zhuowen's strength was on par with Lu Chei's. They were both ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators. If either of them encountered him, they would probably be instantly killed. However, if they worked together, even Zhuowen might not be able to do anything to them. Second brother, if we work together. So what if this Zhuowen is a second will ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator? Zhuowen might not be able to gain the upper hand against our combined strength. The blue-clothed youth's face revealed a trace of ruthlessness as he hurriedly shouted to the white-clothed youth. Big brother is right. If the two of us work together, we might not be afraid of this Zhuowen. Last time, Master Wuji just gave us a combined armor skill. Although it's not an Emperor tier armor skill, it's still a superior Heaven tier armor skill. If the two of us work together, the power we can unleash is no weaker than an Emperor tier armor skill. Perhaps we might even be able to directly kill this Zhuowen. At that time, it would be a great merit. The white-clothed youth licked his lips. The fear in his eyes disappeared and was replaced by excitement. Chapter 443. Yin-Yang Primordial Water. In an instant, the Yuan energy in the entire valley began to boil. The air vibrated and whistled. It was as if a storm was about to come. What a powerful aura this is! Zhuowen, who was originally in midair, felt the sudden surge of Yuan Qi in the valley. His body came to a halt as he stared at the blue-clothed young man and the white-clothed young man, who had extended their right hands at the same time. On the other side of the valley, Lu Chei, who was entangled with the reverse spirit puppet, also felt the strange aura in the valley. He tilted his head and saw the actions of the young man in blue and the young man in white. A glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. Oh, could this be the Yin-Yang Primordial Water technique? I really didn't expect that Sir would even pass on such a combined armor technique to these two brothers. It seems like my worries just now were unnecessary. After seeing the armor technique displayed by the two youths, Lu Chei was relieved. Although the Yin-Yang Primordial Water technique was only a heaven-class armor technique, it was an extremely rare combined armor technique. Its power was comparable to that of an Emperor-class armor technique. The Yin-Yang Primordial Water technique required two ancient martial art practitioners with Yin and Yang elemental Yuan Qi respectively. It was an extremely powerful armor technique that could summon the Yin-Yang Primordial Water from the void once it was unleashed. The power of the Yin-Yang Primordial Water was extraordinary. It was a liquid energy that only existed in the vast void. Even a drop of the Yin-Yang Primordial Water weighed 1,000 pounds. If the boundless Yin-Yang Primordial Water was summoned, its power would be like a mountain crashing down. It was not something that an ordinary person could withstand. Yin-Yang Primordial Water overturned the world. The blue-clothed young man and the white-clothed young man made hand seals at the same time. Their movements were almost exactly the same. Suddenly, with a low shout, the void behind them actually made a tearing sound. It was like the sound of cloth being torn apart. A head-sized black hole was directly torn open. From the black hole in the void, a stream of black and white water gushed out. A strong aura was emitted from the Yin-Yang Primordial Water. What is this? Looking at the Yin-Yang Primordial Water that was left behind in the void, Zhuowen revealed a tinge of fear. Although he did not know what Yin-Yang Primordial Water was, he could feel the terrifying power within it. Kid, this is the Yin-Yang Primordial Water. It is a liquid form of energy that only exists in the void. It is said that a single drop of Yin-Yang Primordial Water weighs 500 kilograms. Although it is known as primordial water, its toughness is comparable to the toughest metal in the world. I never thought that those two fellows would be able to summon such a powerful primordial water. Xiao Hei's voice rang out in his mind. After hearing Xiao Hei's explanation, Zhuowen revealed a tinge of astonishment. He did not expect the Yin-Yang Primordial Water to be so strange. A single drop of primordial water actually weighed 1,000 pounds. This was completely unimaginable to him. The Yin-Yang Primordial Water that was summoned by the two youths was only the size of a head. It was like a black and white ball that quietly floated in front of them. Kid, it seems like the two of them are not very powerful. They can only summon a drop of yin-yang primordial water, that is the size of a head. If the two of them could summon a drop of yin-yang primordial water, that is the size of a person, I'm afraid that even if you use all your trump cards, you will not be able to withstand it. However, you have to be careful. Even though it is only the size of a head, the yin-yang primordial water has the power to crush a mountain. At this moment, Xiao Hei's voice became rather serious. Zhuowen had no choice but to treat the yin-yang primordial water before him with caution. At this moment, the two youths were extremely pale, and their eyes were dim. Evidently, the backlash from summoning the yin-yang primordial water was extremely severe. Zhuowen, the two of us know that you are very powerful. However, if you think that you can defeat the two of us, you are gravely mistaken. The yin-yang primordial water is extremely powerful. A drop of it weighs 1,000 pounds. Now that there is so much yin-yang primordial water, its power is no weaker than the weight of a mountain. Let's see if you can withstand it. The youth in blue stared at Zhuowen in front of him with hatred. The side effects of using the yin-yang primordial water technique were extremely severe. If it was not a critical moment, they would not use such an armor technique. Now that Zhuowen had forced them to use such an armor technique, he was naturally extremely displeased. I don't care about your yin-yang primordial water. Since you have offended me, Zhuowen, all of you have to die. Although Zhuowen was wary of the yin-yang primordial water, it did not mean that he was afraid. With a cold snort, Zhuowen took a step forward. His entire body turned into a streak of lightning and charged towards the two youths. Second brother, you take half of the yin-yang primordial water and focus on defense. I will be in charge of offense. If we work together, we will definitely be able to kill Zhuowen. As the blue-robed youth spoke, he conjured a spell with his right hand and waved it horizontally towards the black and white ball in front of him. Instantly, he took half of the yin-yang primordial water and charged towards Zhuowen without showing any signs of weakness. The youth in white nodded his head seriously and took the other half of the yin-yang primordial water. He followed closely behind the youth in blue. Boom! Zhuowen shook his right hand, and the blood-red spear turned into a sky full of spear shadows. They engulfed the youth in blue and white. Yin-yang primordial water prison drawing. The youth in white snorted and squeezed the yin-yang primordial water in his right hand. The sound of flowing water could be heard, and the black and white yin-yang primordial water revolved in front of the two youths, forming a black and white iron prison. Boom! The blood-red spear shadows landed heavily on the black and white prison. A crisp sound of metal clashing could be heard, and a strong rebounding force could be felt. Zhuowen felt his right hand go numb, and he could not help but take a few steps back. He only managed to stabilize his body after taking a step in the air. It's so sturdy. Is this the power of the yin-yang primordial water? Looking at the immovable black and white prison, Zhuowen was moved. Brat! Don't be fooled by the small amount of yin-yang primordial water summoned by the two youths. Just this small amount of yin-yang primordial water is as strong as 1,000 feet tall mountain. Therefore, you must not let your guard down. Otherwise, you might end up in a tragedy. Xiao Hei's serious voice could be heard. Seeing that Zhuowen had been forced back, a look of excitement flashed across the blue-robed youth's eyes. He suddenly took out the other half of the yin-yang primordial water with his right hand and pinched out a sword finger. He shouted, "Yin-yang primordial water, world's end." The sound of flowing water could be heard continuously. The yin-yang primordial water in the youth's hand changed shape and eventually turned into black and white swords. Swoosh swoosh. Once the black and white swords were formed, they turned into two rays of black and white radiance and headed straight for Zhuowen. Zhuowen did not show any signs of weakness. He took a step forward, and the crimson spear shook violently. Streams of bloody aura surged out and surrounded Zhuowen's body. The bloody aura spread out and made Zhuowen look like a god or a demon. Demon Moon Secret Manual, Blood Rupture Style. Break. Lin Fan swung his right hand and countless streams of bloody aura gathered in the air, and finally turned into a gigantic crimson spear shadow. The gigantic spear shadow was like a huge mountain, and it rumbled as it pressed down. The air pressure rose, and it was as if the air was about to explode. The gigantic spear shadow suddenly arrived and violently hit the black and white swords in the air. Compared to the gigantic spear shadow, the black and white sword seemed extremely small. Clang clang! Two black and white sword rays flashed by, causing Zhuo Wen's pupils to shrink. The two black and white swords sliced the huge blood-red spear into pieces, as if they were cutting tofu. In the end, the spear was reduced to dust. The black and white swords formed by the yin-yang primordial water are so sharp. The blood rupture style was broken so easily? Zhuo Wen frowned. The power of the yin-yang primordial water was beyond his expectations. The sharpness of the black and white swords was comparable to the power of an earthly soul treasure. Haha! Zhuo Wen, you are dead meat. Seeing that Zhuo Wen's blood rupture style was broken, the youth in blue laughed loudly. His face was filled with excitement, and there was even a tinge of greed in his eyes. He had heard from the Wuxia old man that other than the royal armor skill, the limitless cloud shocking technique, Zhuo Wen also had a large reserve of quenching crystal jades. As long as he killed Zhuo Wen, half of the treasures in Zhuo Wen's blood rupture style would belong to him. He knew that since Zhuo Wen had a treasure like the quenching crystal jades, he must have had a fortuitous encounter, and there must be a lot of treasures in there. If he could get his hands on the Qianquan bag, it would be extremely beneficial for him. With a pinch of his sword fingers, the black and white swords turned into two rays of sword radiance, and went straight for Zhuo Wen's glabella. The crisp sound of the sword resonated, and sounded extremely distant. Clang clang! Zhuo Wen's face darkened when he saw the black and white swords flying towards him. His right hand trembled slightly, and the blood-red great spear swept out like a door. A powerful force swept out like a hurricane, smashing against the black and white swords. So heavy! The moment he came into contact with the black and white swords, Zhuo Wen's expression changed slightly. He felt as if two large mountains were pressing down on him. His knees bent slightly, and his entire body was pressed down. When he landed on the ground, the heavy pressure left a footprint dozens of inches deep in the ground. Haha! The black and white swords are formed from the yin-yang primordial water. Each sword is as heavy as a mountain, even if you're a second-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator. I'm afraid it won't be easy for you to block the black and white swords. So now die. The young man in blue laughed wantonly. He knew that Zhuo Wen was about to die at his hands, which also meant that half of the treasures in Zhuo Wen's blood rupture style would belong to him. When he thought of this, the young man in blue's smile became even more radiant. Yin and yang fuse, two swords become one. Zhuo Wen, go in peace. The young man in blue formed another seal with his hands. The black and white swords that had struck the crimson spear turned into two rays of sword radiance and shot into the sky. With a whoosh, they fused together. A huge black and white sword that was dozens of feet long shot out of the void. It was like a rolling mountain, as it rapidly descended above Zhuo Wen. Rumble! Chapter 444. Strangle. The powerful explosion continued for dozens of feet. Some of the withered branches and withered leaves in the surrounding area were all turned into powder under such power. When the explosion was completely over, a huge pit of about 10 feet wide appeared in the valley. The huge pit was basically surrounded by decadent ruins. Smoke rose everywhere, and dust obscured the eyes. Clang clang! Two black and white sword rays burst out from the bottom of the huge pit, and returned to the blue-clothed youth like dazzling meteors. They playfully circled around the youth like children relying on their mother. Big brother, is Zhuo Wen dead? The white-clothed youth next to him asked tentatively. Hee, that Zhuo Wen is dead for sure. The fusion of yin and yang is the most powerful move of the yin-yang dual swords. Even if that Zhuo Wen is a second-wheel ultimate emperor realm warrior, if he doesn't have the same powerful means, he can only die. The blue-clothed youth smiled excitedly. On the other side, Lu Che, who was entangled with the reverse spirit puppet, also saw the scene of the fusion of yin and yang displayed by the blue-clothed youth. A trace of fear burst out from his eyes. He didn't expect the yin-yang true water technique to be so powerful. If he were to face the two brothers, he would not be able to gain the slightest advantage. However, fortunately, that Zhuo Wen has been taken care of. The task handed over by Sir this time can be considered completed. Lu Che sighed softly. He originally thought that it would take some effort to deal with Zhuowen. The Wuxia old man even gave him 3 life talismans, thinking that it would come in handy. Now it seemed that the Wuxia old man's worries were superfluous. Zhuowen was simply too weak to withstand a single blow. With a wave of his right hand, Lu Che sent the reverse spirit puppet flying with a palm. He was about to join the 2 brothers in blue, but he seemed to have thought of something. He suddenly turned his head and stared straight at the reverse spirit puppet in front of him, which was still lively as a dragon and a tiger. His pupils suddenly shrank. After fighting with the reverse spirit puppet many times, Lu Che also knew that the burly man in front of him was not a real person, but a puppet. Generally speaking, since the master had fallen, these controlled puppets should be unable to move because of the master's command. However, the reverse spirit puppet did not stop. Instead, it became even crazier. An ominous thought immediately appeared in Lu Che's head, causing him to jerk his head in the direction of the young man in blue. He called out, "Zhou-yi, Zhou-fan, the 2 of you be careful. Zhuowen is probably still alive." Not far away, Zhou-yi and his brother, who were originally feeling complacent about killing Zhuowen, could not help but be startled after hearing Lu Che's warning. Lu Che, stop joking around. The might of the fusion of yin and yang is already comparable to a monarch tier armor skill. Do you think that Zhuowen would still be alive after taking such a powerful attack head-on? The blue-clothed youth Zhou-yi shook his head. "Zhou-yi, I'm not joking. This thing is a puppet controlled by Zhuowen. If Zhuowen is really dead, this puppet should stop. However, this puppet has not stopped. Instead, its attacks are even more violent." Lu Che's eyes were gloomy as he shouted in a low voice with some anger. Zhou-yi and Zhou-fan were startled when they heard this. They also saw the somewhat crazy reverse spirit puppet, and their faces immediately turned ugly. If what Lu Che said was true, then Zhuowen was really not dead. No way. The might of the fusion of yin and yang is comparable to an emperor tier armor technique. Zhuowen was struck head-on by it. Even if he's a second-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator, he'll probably die. It's almost impossible for him to survive. Zhou-yi frowned slightly and shifted his gaze slightly. His gaze converged on the huge pit not far away. He did not believe that Zhuowen was still alive. Whoosh! Just as Zhou-yi's gaze converged on the huge pit, a blood-red light swept out from the deep pit. Before Zhou-yi could react, it instantly reached his right chest. Poochie! Zhou-yi spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body was sent flying by a powerful force. He slammed into the rock wall behind him, and his entire body was embedded in the rock wall. Zhou-fan and Lu Che, who were still in shock, realized that the blood-red light was actually a huge blood-red spear. At this moment, the blood-red spear had pierced through Zhou-yi's right chest and pinned him to the rock wall like a lamb skewer. The yin-yang primordial water is really powerful. It actually forced me to use the jadestone body tempering technique. A clear voice slowly rang out. Immediately, Lu Che and Zhou-fan's pupils shrank when they saw a blood-red figure slowly walking out from the deep pit. It was Zhuowen. At this moment, Zhuowen's body was surrounded by spiral-shaped blood flames. Terrifying blood lines were engraved on the surface of his exposed skin. In an instant, the temperature of the entire valley soared to the extreme. With every step that Zhuowen took, the scorching heat from the soles of his feet melted the ground into magma. At this moment Zhuowen, who was surrounded by blood flames, was like a demon from the depths of hell. A terrifying and vast aura swept out from his body like a hurricane. "Big brother!" Zhou-fan glanced at Zhuowen in fear. With a stomp of his foot, he hurriedly arrived at Zhou-yi, who had been pinned to the rock wall by the blood-colored great spear. With a pull of his right hand, he pulled out the blood-colored great spear that had sunk into Zhou-yi's chest. Cough cough. After coughing out some blood, Zhou-yi looked at the blood-red figure in the distance. A tinge of fear finally appeared in his eyes. This Zhuowen was ridiculously powerful. He had clearly taken on the yin-yang fusion attack head-on. Now he did not seem to be injured at all. "Zhuowen, just now it must be your luck. Take another attack from me. Yin-yang fusion, twin swords become one." Zhou-yi did not believe that Zhuowen could withstand the yin-yang twin swords. He pinched his sword fingers again, and the black and white swords in front of him fused into one again. transforming into a huge black and white sword that was dozens of feet long. Swoosh! Once the huge black and white sword was formed, it pierced through the void. The sword radiance that was suffused with cold light overflowed in all directions. Once again it swept towards Zhuowen's head. The same move does not have much of an effect on me. Zhuowen shook his head. He stretched his right hand upwards, and the terrifying blood-red flames transformed into a huge bloody hand. It grabbed the huge black and white sword that was flying towards him, following which, Zhuowen squeezed hard, and the huge black and white sword was crushed into pieces by a huge force. The fragments of the huge sword were like black and white raindrops that fluttered down. What? This guy caught the huge black and white sword with his bare hands? And he crushed it directly? The valley suddenly became extremely quiet. Regardless of whether it was Lu Che, Zhou Yi or Zhou Fan, they all stared blankly at the blood-red figure that was bathed in the black and white fragments. Swoosh! Zhuowen took a step forward and a blood-red flame spread out. He was like a bloodthirsty demon god. In an instant, he appeared above Zhou Yi and Zhou Fan. The blood-red fist that was ready to strike tore through the air and blasted towards the two of them. Yin-Yang primordial water prison drawing. Zhou Fan paled in fright and hurriedly shouted. The yin-yang primordial water in his hand transformed into a black and white cage that enveloped the two of them. Rumble! The blood-red fist brutally slammed into the black and white cage. The powerful force caused the rock-hard cage to shake violently. What a powerful force! Why is Zhuowen so much stronger than before? What is going on? This is not the strength that an initial stage Emperor Realm cultivator should have. Zhou Yi's pupils shrank to the size of needles as he looked at the black and white cage that was shaking around him in disbelief. Not far away, Lu Che, who was entangled with the reverse spirit puppet, also saw the ridiculously powerful Zhuowen. His face was also filled with disbelief. Zhuowen's current strength is far more than that of an early-stage second-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. He's probably comparable to a peak second-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. His body is also ridiculously strong. Did he not use his full strength during the Heaven and Earth Monoliths test? Lu Che muttered to himself in shock. Crack! Under the attack of the blood-red fist, the black cage only lasted for a breath's time before crumbling inch by inch. Zhou Yi and Zhou Fan were directly turned into a bloody mist by the force. With a wave of his right hand, Zhuowen unceremoniously took the two Qingquan bags. He tilted his head slightly and looked coldly at Lu Che, who was entangled with the reverse spirit puppet. Damn it! Zhou Yi and Zhou Fan are both dead. This Zhuowen is really ruthless. Lu Che felt his hair stand on end as Zhuowen stared at him. He slammed his right palm on the reverse spirit puppet's chest, causing it to retreat dozens of steps. Then he stomped his foot and retreated dozens of meters away. He stared at Zhuowen with a dark expression. Lu Che, haven't you been following me and trying to kill me? Why don't you dare to come forward now? With a wave of his right hand, Zhuowen put the reverse spirit puppet into his Qingquan bag. He stared straight at Lu Che in the distance. Zhuowen, you've really hidden your strength well. I originally thought you were only at the early stage of the second will extreme Emperor Realm. I didn't expect you to be so strong. I'm afraid you're already comparable to a peak second wheel extreme Emperor Realm warrior? Lu Che's expression was a little ugly. The aura of Zhuowen in front of him was clearly only at the early stage of the second wheel extreme Emperor Realm. But the strength he displayed actually made him feel a sense of despair. If it weren't for the 3 talismans given to him by the Wuxia old man, he probably wouldn't even have the courage to face Zhuowen. Oh, are you afraid? Zhuowen raised his eyebrows and said indifferently, Afraid? If I was really afraid, do you think I would still be here talking nonsense with you? You killed 4 of our Tyrant Chu City's geniuses, and even Zhou Yi and Zhou Fan were killed by you. Tyrant Chu City has suffered heavy losses. However, as long as I kill you and take all the refined crystal jades from you, these losses can be completely offset. Lu Che laughed sinisterly. He took out a golden talisman from his Qingquan bag and drew runes that looked like scribbles on it. However, what made Zhuowen's pupils shrink was that he actually felt a terrifying aura from the talisman. It was as if there was an extremely terrifying energy hidden within the talisman. Kid, The talisman in Lu Che's hand is extremely dangerous. I can feel that the energy contained within it is enough to kill any second-wheel extreme Emperor Realm warrior. Chapter 445. A natal talisman. What? It can kill any second-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator? Xiaohei, are you joking? Is a tiny talisman really that powerful? Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. His heart was filled with disbelief as he communicated with Xiaohei. Kid, you're ignorant. You should know that there are some cultivators who are proficient in talismans, who can create all sorts of powerful talismans. Talismans may seem like tiny pieces of paper, but the process of creating them is extremely troublesome. Moreover, the talismans that are created are extremely terrifying. If I'm not wrong, it's very likely that the talisman in Lu Che's hand is a natal talisman, that the everlasting old man refined himself. A natal talisman like this requires the refinement of one's own essence blood into the talisman. A single talisman typically possesses 50% of the master's strength. If this really is the natal talisman of the everlasting old man, then we're in trouble. The everlasting old man is an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. 50% of his strength is comparable to the full-powered attack of an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. That's naturally enough to kill any second-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Even if your body is extraordinarily tough, you'll probably be heavily injured by the power of this talisman. Xiaohei's voice was extremely cautious. There was even a trace of fear in it. Xiaohei had seen many natal talismans like this in the ancient times. It could be said that they were extremely terrifying items. Zhuowen only became serious when he heard that. He narrowed his eyes and stared at the talisman in Lu Che's hand. He moved his feet slightly and stealthily took a few steps back. Lu Che, who was in front, also saw Zhuowen's strange behavior, and a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. Could it be that Zhuowen recognized the talisman in his hand? Not many people know about natal talismans like this. Zhuowen only comes from a low-level city. It's impossible for him to recognize something like a natal talisman. Lu Che murmured to himself. Lu Che muttered in his heart. He no longer hesitated. His right hand suddenly took out the natal talisman, and his hands quickly formed a seal. Run! That natal talisman isn't something you can deal with. Xiaohei immediately shouted from within his sea of consciousness. Her voice was filled with urgency. Zhuowen was also aware of the urgency of the situation. His foot stamped on the air, and 2 pairs of lightning wings instantly sprouted out from his back. The lightning wings, which were several zhang in length, gently opened and closed. Next, Zhuowen's figure transformed into a lightning silhouette as he disappeared from the spot. Zhuowen, you can't escape. The life talisman was bestowed to me by Wuji. It's too late for you to escape now. Just obediently accept your death. At this time, Lu Che's hands had already formed a seal. The surface of his life source talisman emitted a blazing golden light, like the scorching noon sun, appearing extremely dazzling. The boundless golden light instantly turned into a rain of light that filled the sky, enveloping the entire valley. For a moment, the valley was enveloped by a layer of transparent golden barrier, and waves of powerful aura were constantly emitted from this barrier. Boom! At this moment, Zhuowen had already arrived in front of the golden barrier by relying on his 2 pairs of lightning wings. Caught off guard, he slammed into the barrier. In an instant, golden light spilled out in all directions, and a strong rebounding force surged towards him. Zhuowen could not help but retreat, and only stabilized himself after retreating more than 10 meters away. Damn it! This so-called natal talisman actually has such a trick. I was so close to leaving the valley completely. Staring at the golden barrier in front of him, Zhuowen's expression was gloomy as he whispered, "Let's see if I can blast open this golden barrier." His eyes flashing, Zhuowen stamped his foot, and his right hand pinched the air. Waves of bloody flames burst out, and turned into a huge bloody hand in the air. The bloody hand's 5 fingers clenched into a fist and suddenly blasted out, directly hitting the golden barrier. Rumble! A muffled thunder-like sound rolled over the ground. The air formed a terrifying spiral pressure, constantly tearing everything around it, as if the sky and earth had changed color. Thump! Thump! The golden barrier exploded into a golden rain of light, and the enormous bloody hand, that was like a mountain, collapsed inch by inch. Zhuowen let out a muffled groan as he retreated a dozen steps, and his expression was extremely gloomy. Zhuowen rubbed the area between his thumb and index finger, that had become somewhat numb. He said in a bewildered and uncertain manner, "This golden barrier is actually so tough. Even when I used the blood flame, it was actually unable to cause any damage to it." Haha. Zhuowen, don't waste your strength. The golden barrier around you is tough enough to withstand a full-powered attack from 3 Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators. With your current strength, it's like trying to break a rock with an egg. At this moment, Lu Che had already appeared outside the golden barrier. He faced Zhuowen with a face full of mockery. Zhuowen's expression was ugly as he stared at the complacent Lu Che. He said coldly, "What's the point of trapping me in this golden cage? If you have the ability, come in and spar with me." Hehe. Zhuowen, I know you're extremely strong. You're clearly only at the early stage of the 2nd Ultimate Emperor Realm, but you're as strong as a peak 2nd Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. With my strength, I'd be courting death if I went in. But don't worry, there are plenty of opponents in this golden cage. When the time comes, you'll have a good fight, said Lu Che. As soon as Lu Che finished speaking, countless rays of light immediately erupted around the golden barrier. The dense rain of light was like extremely sharp hidden weapons, all of them sweeping towards Zhuowen. Damn it! As he gazed at the dense rain of light, Zhuowen's expression changed greatly. He stomped his foot on the ground, and his entire body transformed into a bolt of lightning that vanished on the spot, causing the rain of light to instantly miss. However, the rain of light seemed to have a mind of its own. After missing, it actually turned around and continued chasing after Zhuowen. Moreover, it moved faster and faster. In the blink of an eye, it was only a few meters away from Zhuowen. So fast. Looks like I can't dodge. I can only take it head-on. Zhuowen knew that it was impossible to dodge when he saw that the rain of light was about to catch up to him. He gritted his teeth and immediately used the third move of the Moonfiend's secret codex, Blood Maple Dance. Blood-red maple leaves covered his body. At the same time, Zhuowen summoned the infinite astral swords in the surroundings, forming an impenetrable wall. Afterwards, 2 pairs of lightning wings flapped inwards, forming a shield of lightning at the innermost layer. He instantly set up multiple layers of defense. The rain of light arrived in an instant as well, falling like countless hidden weapons. It slammed against Zhuowen's defenses, producing an ear-piercing screech of metal. Boom! In just an instant, the outermost layer of Blood Maple Dance was reduced to dust by the rain of light. The rain of light smashed against the impenetrable wall formed by the infinite astral swords like a hot knife through butter. The boundless sword aura was indeed worthy of being a Tier 4 origin array. Its degree of toughness had exceeded Zhuowen's expectations. It had actually blocked the bombardment of the light rain. When the light rain landed on the boundless sword aura, countless dazzling sparks immediately erupted. Lu Che, who was outside the golden barrier, also saw the infinite astral swords blocking the rain of light outside Zhuowen's body. His eyes immediately revealed a trace of greed as he muttered, "This should be a Tier 4 origin array. TSK. This is an item whose value is comparable to an earthly soul treasure. This Zhuowen actually has such a treasure. It seems like he's really rich." Thinking that after killing Zhuowen, he would be able to obtain the refined crystal jade and the Tier 4 origin array in his Qingquan bag. Lu Che's face immediately revealed a smile. He knew that if he had these, his strength would definitely rise to another level. When the time came to enter the training mountain, his chances of success would be even greater. The rain of light only lasted for 5 breaths of time before it disappeared. After coming out of the impenetrable wall, the corner of Zhuowen's eyes could not help but twitch as he looked at the infinite astral swords that had become extremely dim. The power of the rain of light was still somewhat beyond his expectations. If it had continued for a little longer, even the infinite astral swords would not have been able to block it. Forget it, I'm not playing anymore. Let's directly get rid of this Zhuowen. Otherwise, there will be changes if we delay. Seeing that Zhuowen had blocked the rain of light, Lu Che was also a little surprised. He curled his lips and revealed an even more sinister expression. Both of his hands suddenly formed a seal, and his mind moved. Instantly, the golden barrier that had originally covered the entire valley disappeared. Countless rays of golden light gathered at a point in the sky. Finally, a golden figure stepped out of the void, majestic and dignified. Zhuan, this is the true power of the life talisman. This golden figure contains 50% of the power of the infinite astral swords. Its strength is comparable to an ultimate Emperor Realm third wheel. But it can only last for half an incense stick's worth of time. If you can last for half an incense stick's worth of time against this golden figure, perhaps you will still have a chance to live. Of course, this is not very likely, so you should just accept your death. Wuxia said loudly. As soon as he finished speaking, the golden figure that had stepped out of the void stomped his foot. Immediately, a ring of golden energy that was dozens of feet long erupted in the void and spread out in all directions. Zhuan, who was not far away, could not help but groan under the influence of this golden energy. He spat out a trace of blood, and a look of horror appeared on his face. This golden figure is very strong. It should be at the level of an ultimate Emperor Realm third wheel. You are no match for this fellow at all. Kid, hurry up and run. Xiao Hei's helpless voice rang out once more. Although Zhuan's strength was not bad, it was still not enough to face an expert whose realm was higher than his. If they met, he could only run for his life. After speaking, Xiao Hei awkwardly discovered that Zhuan had not moved at all. It was as if he had not heard it at all. He could not help but say angrily, "Kid, hurry up and run." The difference in strength between a Ultimate Emperor Realm third wheel and a Ultimate Emperor Realm second wheel is extremely great. Although you have all sorts of trump cards, and your strength far surpasses cultivators of the same realm, your current realm is still too low. However, your current cultivation is far too low. You're only at the early stage of the second wheel. If you were at the peak of the second wheel, you might be able to put up a fight against the golden figure with your powerful body. You're just courting death right now. Chapter 446. The Golden Figure. You brat, this is just a talisman. It's not LV Yongsheng at all. If you meet LV Yongsheng, I'm afraid you'll have to run even more. That LV Yongsheng has more trump cards than you do. He's much stronger than this golden figure. If you meet him, you'll die even if you don't run. Xiao Hei said in exasperation. Zhuan shook his head and said indifferently, Xiao Hei, you don't understand. Ever since I was forced to the brink of death by LV Yongsheng last time, I decided that I won't run away the next time I meet him. Even if I die, I won't run away in a sorry state. I have a feeling that I'll definitely meet LV Yongsheng again in the battle for the Vitality Tower. I don't want to lose again. That's why I want to see just how strong an Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator is. Just how big is the gap between me and the former? You brat. Xiao Hei shook his head, not knowing what to say. After so many years of being together, he understood Zhuan's character very well. This brat usually looked like he didn't care. But once he decided on something, even 10 horses couldn't pull him back. Even if he knew that he would die, this brat would still do what he had decided on without hesitation. Since this golden figure is an Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, his speed will definitely be much faster than mine. Even if I run away with all my heart, I'll still be caught in the end. At that time, I'll have wasted all my energy. It's better to take advantage of the fact that my vitality is at its peak to fight for a chance at survival. As he spoke, Zhuan pulled out the blood-red great spear in front of him. With a shake of his right hand, a dense cloud of mist immediately appeared around him. This cloud of mist slowly spread out until it covered an area of several dozen meters around Zhuan. Limitless Startling Cloud Art? This brat has already cultivated the Limitless Startling Cloud Art and has even reached the small success stage? This speed is too fast. This brat has only obtained this armor technique for 3 days, and he's already reached the small success stage? Not far away, Wuxia also saw the cloud of mist that enveloped Zhuan's body. A trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. He had learned the Limitless Startling Cloud Art before. Being able to spread the cloud of mist for several dozen meters meant that it was at the small success stage. If the cloud of mist could spread out for several hundred meters, it meant that the Limitless Startling Cloud Art had reached the large success stage. If it could spread out for several thousand meters, it meant that it was at the large success stage. Once the limitless art of startling clouds reached perfection, its power would be extremely terrifying. Clouds and mist that stretched for thousands of feet would be able to be mobilized at will. Its power would be beyond imagination. When Lu Che had first learned the limitless startling cloud art, he had spent a full 2 months before barely reaching the initial mastery. Then, he had spent nearly a year before reaching the advanced mastery. Now that he saw Zhuo Wen reach the initial mastery in just 3 days, Lu Che was naturally shocked. This Zhuo Wen's talent is really high. In a mere 3 days, he was able to comprehend the concept of the startling cloud limitless art. No wonder this brat can cultivate to the ultimate emperor realm, even though he's from a low-level city. He really is a monstrous genius. But it's a pity that such a monstrous genius is about to die at my hands. Lu Che's face revealed a delighted smile. To Lu Che, there was nothing more exciting than seeing a monstrous genius fall with his own eyes. In the sky, the golden figure's facial features were blurry, but his golden eyes were extremely dazzling. He was staring coldly at Zhuo Wen. Without saying a word, he stepped lightly in the air, and his entire body turned into a golden light. Like an arrow, he shot towards Zhuo Wen. He's coming. Zhuo Wen was not afraid. There was a trace of madness in his eyes. The blood veins on the surface of his body were like countless blood vessels. This was the sign that he had pushed the 7th level of the Jadestone body tempering technique to its limit. With a shake of his right hand, the blood-red spear turned into a bloody light that filled the sky. It shot up into the sky and instantly enveloped the golden figure. Rumble! The golden figure waved his right hand and crushed the bloody light that filled the sky. Then, a blazing golden fist pierced through the air and blasted towards Zhuo Wen. Zhuo Wen's eyes were solemn. He used the spear in his hand to display the various major moves of the Yaoyue Secret Codex. These moves were amplified by the clouds and mist, and their power had increased by several times. Blood Maple Dance, Blood Burst Style, Blood Explosion Style. A thick smell of blood swept through the entire valley. In an instant, Zhuo Wen had displayed the 3 strongest moves of the Yaoyue Secret Codex. At the same time, the clouds and mist within a radius of several tens of zhang around him roiled violently like a tsunami. The 3 moves were forcibly fused together to form a several hundred zhang long spear, made of clouds and mist. The cloud spear that blotted out the sky pierced through the air and violently slammed into the golden figure's body. Boom! 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 Violent explosions constantly reverberated through the air. The golden figure did not dodge. Instead, he stretched out his right hand and grabbed the cloud spear in the air. Then, with a flick of his fingers, a vortex of energy appeared in his palm and crushed the cloud spear to dust. Spurt! Zhuo Wen involuntarily spat out a mouthful of fresh blood as he continuously retreated. There was a trace of shock in his eyes. He did not expect that under the amplification of the limitless startling cloud art, the cloud spear, which was formed from the fusion of the 3 great moves of the Demon Moon Secret Manual, would be so weak in the hands of this golden human figure. Kid, do you understand the difference between you and an ultimate Emperor Realm expert? With your current strength, it's almost impossible for you to be a match for an ultimate Emperor Realm expert. Moreover, the golden figure has only been using normal attacks the entire time. You can't do anything to him with just normal attacks. If he used an armor technique, you probably would be dead by now. Xiao Hei's sigh immediately rang out in his head. At this moment, Xiao Hei did not gloat like he usually did. Instead, he began to advise Zhuo Wen to get up. He really was afraid that Zhuo Wen would be so stubborn as to throw his life away. However, Zhuo Wen shook his head and said, "The golden figure is condensed from a natal talisman after all. He clearly can't use something as profound as an armor technique. At most, he can use normal attacks. His strength is far inferior to LV Yongxing's. If I run away from the golden figure in fear, wouldn't I lose the courage to face LV Yongxing in the future? That's why I won't run away." Xiao Hei suddenly fell silent when he heard that. Xiao Hei knew that Zhuo Wen was unwilling to back down even at this point. If he continued to advise him, it would be like casting pearls before swine. What a stubborn kid. If he really does end up in a life or death situation, I'll have no choice but to expend some of my origin energy to help this kid. Sigh, how troublesome. Xiaohei helplessly shook his head as he sat in the center of the sea of consciousness. However, there was a sliver of appreciation and gratification on his face. Xiaohei had watched Zhuowen grow up step by step when he was with the Zhuo family in Rattan Armor City. He had been an ordinary young man, but he had now grown to be a renowned expert even in Muqin province. Who would have thought that the disciple of a small clan in a low-level city would grow to such a level? He had even surpassed the peak geniuses of many super cities. Perhaps in the eyes of others, Zhuowen's current achievements were largely due to luck, endless opportunities and fortuitous encounters. However, they failed to see that behind these opportunities and fortuitous encounters were often great dangers and dangers. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world, and no pie would fall out of nowhere. Everything needed to be fought for. Zhuowen's opportunities and fortuitous encounters had all come from risking his life time and time again. He had used his extraordinary willpower in exchange for them. They did not fall out of the sky for no reason. This was why Zhuowen had been able to rise up and overcome all the obstacles before him. In summary, luck also needed to be protected by strength. Otherwise, it would only be a pipe dream. Boom! Streams of blood-red flames surrounded Zhuowen's body. They were like the most loyal guards, constantly defending Zhuowen's body. At the same time, Zhuowen and the golden figure moved at the same time. The blood-red figure and the golden figure instantly intertwined in the void. The dull sounds of fists hitting flesh constantly reverberated in the void. Zhuowen actually fought the golden figure with no regard for his life. He was trading blows with the golden figure in a way that made him look like a desperate man. Boom! 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 Unfortunately, the difference in strength between the two was too great. Zhuowen did not even touch the corner of the golden figure's clothes. He was directly punched in the chest by the golden figure. Zhuowen fell like a meteor, smashing a deep pit in the ground. The ground around him cracked. This Zhuowen is really stupid. He actually fought the golden figure with his life on the line. That's just courting death. Lu Che, who was not far away, sneered and shook his head. The golden figure was expressionless. He stomped his foot in the void and with the force of Mount Tai, directly dropped down on Zhuowen in the deep pit. Slowly climbing out of the deep pit, Zhuowen's expression changed slightly when he saw the golden figure rapidly descending from the sky. His feet stomped on the ground, and his entire body miserably flipped to the side, coincidentally dodging the golden figure's 1,000-pound drop. Quickly retreating a dozen steps, Zhuowen's expression was extremely grave. He spat out a mouthful of blood and coldly muttered, "What a terrifying guy. Just an ordinary attack, and I'm already in such a sorry state. I wonder if the 9-wheel burning sky cauldron can deal with this golden figure." As he spoke, a trace of hesitation appeared on Zhuowen's face. In fact, he did not really want to reveal the 9-wheel burning sky cauldron. After all, the 9-wheel burning sky cauldron was an earthly soul treasure. Moreover, it was an extremely high-grade earthly soul treasure. If others were to know that he had such a treasure on him, it was hard to guarantee that he wouldn't be attacked. However, now that it was a matter of life and death, Zhuowen couldn't care so much anymore. Patting his Qingquan bag, Zhuowen instantly summoned the exquisite 9-wheel burning sky cauldron. Soon after, he formed a seal, and the 9-wheel burning sky cauldron immediately grew to a size of several feet. The fire spouts at the bottom of the cauldron spewed out 4 types of blazing and terrifying flames. They were the 4 types of earth flames that Zhuowen had collected so far. The 9 Heavens Thunder Inferno Flame, the 3000 Jade Lotus Flame, the Star Inferno Flame, and the Blood Flame. 4 different colored earth flames revolved around the 9-wheel burning sky cauldron, appearing illusory and beautiful. This is an earthly soul treasure. Chapter 447. A bitter battle. After a brief moment of shock, Lu Che's eyes were filled with greed as he muttered to himself, "Zhuowen's wealth is beyond my imagination. Not only does he have a rare treasure like the refined crystal jade, he even has an earth-rank soul treasure. On top of that, he has a strange secret technique." At this point, Lu Che stared at Zhuowen with a burning gaze. In his eyes, Zhuowen had become a moving treasure trove. As long as he killed Zhuowen, everything on him would belong to him. Zhuowen must die. I must kill him. Lu Che began to recklessly squander the energy of the world in his body, controlling the golden figure to attack Zhuowen with all his might. He had to kill Zhuowen as soon as possible. With the refined crystal jade and the earth-rank soul treasure cauldron, as well as the life talisman that Lord gave me, I have absolute confidence in entering the top 100 in the Origin Chi Tower battle. At that time, I will have the qualifications to enter the 4th floor of the Origin Chi Tower to explore the ancient ruins. Haha. The more Lu Che thought about it, the more excited he became. In the end, he threw his head back and laughed. Form the 9 wheels burning heavens array. At this moment, Zhuowen's expression was calm. With a wave of his right hand, the 9 wheels burning heavens cauldron began to revolve. 4 types of earth fire surged out of the cauldron's mouth, forming a huge firestorm. This firestorm was composed of 4 different colors. At first glance, it was extremely beautiful and dazzling. The firestorm was like a pillar that supported the heavens, instantly blocking the path of the golden figure. It was so hot that it could almost evaporate the air. Rumble! The golden figure suddenly punched out with his right fist. Golden light burst out like a scorching sun. With a bang, the golden figure collided with the firestorm. Thump! 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 To Zhuowen's delight, the golden figure actually retreated several dozen meters under the firestorm's attack. As expected, the might of the 9 wheels burning heavens array composed of 4 types of earth fire is extraordinary. Even a 3 wheels ultimate emperor realm expert is at a disadvantage against this firestorm. Zhuowen's eyes flickered with a hint of joy. The firestorm's might had exceeded his expectations. Strike while he's down. With one successful strike, Zhuowen did not hesitate to activate the firestorm again. With an unstoppable force, it directly blasted towards the golden figure in the distance. Nearby, Lu Che, who had been observing, revealed a slightly gloomy expression when he saw the golden human figure being forced back. The might of the 9-wheel burning sky cauldron in Zhuowen's hand had somewhat exceeded his expectations. Zhuowen, Lord's Origin Talisman, Lu Che's Heaven's Array Talisman. With a sinister laugh, Lu Che held the talisman in his left hand while his right hand formed a sword. He tapped the talisman with his finger and surged with the power of the world. For a moment, the golden light on the surface of the Origin Talisman became incomparably intense. At the same time, the golden figure that had been pushed back suddenly roared towards the sky. His body also emitted a dazzling golden light. Soon after, the golden figure gradually grew larger within the golden light. 3 meters, 6 meters, 9 meters, 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters, 50 meters. In the end, the golden figure turned into a golden giant that was 50 feet tall. It was like a vast mountain. Every step it took caused the entire valley to shake. With a wave of its hand, the forest below was turned into dust. Its power was vast and mighty. The golden giant took a single step and crossed several dozen meters. He instantly arrived in front of the firestorm. He swung his 2 pillar-like arms and slammed them into the firestorm. Rumble! Countless air waves swirled, the air shook, the wind whistled, and the space was annihilated. With the golden giant as the center, the area of several hundred feet had turned into a vacuum. The surrounding space shattered inch by inch like glass. The golden giant's strength is still increasing? How is this possible? A trace of disbelief appeared in Zhuowen's eyes as he stared at the golden giant that had directly blocked the firestorm. If the golden figure's strength was comparable to an early 3-wheel ultimate emperor realm expert, then the golden giant probably possessed the strength of a peak early 3-wheel ultimate emperor realm expert. It wasn't just a slight increase in strength. Rumble! 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 At the same time, the golden giant's fists fell on the firestorm like raindrops. Every punch was able to produce blazing flame power, and the firestorm actually slowly retreated under such storm-like attacks. Furthermore, it also became dimmer and dimmer. With a flash of blazing light, the golden giant's fist landed on the surface of the firestorm. Immediately after, 4 colored flames scattered. The firestorm actually collapsed under the might of the fist, turning into countless sparks that scattered in all directions. Swoosh! The 9-wheel incineration cauldron turned into a streak of light and shot back into Zhuowen's palm. At this moment, the cauldron was dim, and its aura was chaotic. Clearly, the cauldron had suffered some damage from the Golden Giant's attacks. Haha, Zhuowen, I think you should just surrender. Perhaps I, Lu Che, might even leave your corpse intact later. Lu Che, who had been watching from afar, had arrived on the Golden Giant's shoulder at some point. He stared down at Zhuowen savagely. Leave me my corpse intact? Lu Che, are you so certain that you'll be the final victor? Zhuowen's face was sunken as he stared coldly at Lu Che on the Golden Giant's shoulder. Lu Che looked at Zhuowen, as if he was looking at an idiot when he heard this, and he sneered. Zhuowen, the outcome is already so obvious. You've even utilized an Earth-rank spirit treasure, yet you're still unable to do anything to this Golden Giant formed from a natal talisman. Do you think you still have any ability? I advise you to surrender obediently and hand over your Qianquan pouch. I promise to leave your corpse intact. Idiot! Zhuowen couldn't be bothered with Lu Che. Instead, he stared at the Golden Giant with narrowed eyes. He knew that the Golden Giant was so powerful that he had no choice but to use the Ice Flame Sacred Talisman. The blood-red lotus he had created last time was extremely powerful. Even the Nether King had been reduced to dust by the blood-red lotus. Thus, Zhuowen knew that the blood-red lotus was powerful enough to kill an ordinary second-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. It could even threaten a third-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Zhuowen, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Don't blame me when you reach the underworld. Lu Che's face turned cold. He suddenly waved his right hand, and the Golden Giant stomped its foot on the ground. The ground shook violently as it transformed into a streak of golden light and arrived before Zhuowen in an instant. Rumble! 2 pairs of lightning wings unfurled. Zhuowen stomped his foot and transformed into streaks of lightning in the air, instantly dodging the Golden Giant's attack. He said to Lu Che with a dark expression, Lu Che, I didn't want to use this move, but since you forced my hand, don't blame me for being impolite. Haha. Zhuowen, do you really think you're an expert? I even destroyed your Earth-tier soul treasure, yet you're still so arrogant. Lu Che crossed his arms and sneered. In Lu Che's opinion, the Earth-rank soul treasure should be Zhuowen's strongest trump card. If even such a trump card had been broken by him, he really could not think of any other means Zhuowen had to deal with this terrifying Golden Giant. Ignoring Lu Che's mockery, Zhuowen instantly retreated several hundred meters away with a flash of lightning. He raised his hands, and the runes on the back of Zhuowen's hands began to emit a strange light. Soon after, a bloody flame and an extreme cold appeared between his hands. He suddenly put his hands together and merged the 2 extreme energies. With his previous experience, Zhuowen was naturally more proficient in using the Ice-Fire Sacred Rune. In just an instant, a budding bloody lotus quietly lay in his palm. The strange blood-colored flower bud was about to bloom, and the surrounding blood-colored petals had a terrifying temperature. Under the effect of this temperature, the surrounding space actually formed a small and terrifying vacuum. Lu Che, who originally had a mocking expression on his face, was stunned when he saw the blood-colored lotus in Zhuowen's palm. Although he did not know what the blood-colored lotus was, he could clearly feel the terrifying aura within it. This aura actually made him feel a trace of fear, causing Lu Che's expression to be a little uncertain. What kind of armor technique is this? Lu Che frowned as he faintly felt a trace of ominous feeling in his heart. Won't you know if you try? Zhuowen shook his head. Soon after, he tossed his right hand. The blood-red lotus turned into a streak of blood-red light and arrived before the Golden Giant with lightning speed. Before Lu Che could react, the blood-red lotus suddenly bloomed. A blood-colored lotus flower that was hundreds of feet long slowly bloomed in the void. Within the blood-colored lotus flower's area, there was a terrifying explosion of energy. Almost the entire dark forest was engulfed in the explosion. In an instant, the entire area had turned into a barren ruin. Boom! Boom! Intense explosions continued to explode in the sky. The figures that were originally flashing in the other regions of the dark forest came to a stop one after another after they sensed this terrifying explosion. Instead, they lifted their heads to look at the sky. Soon after, they were shocked to discover that 1,000 feet large blood-colored lotus was slowly blooming in the distance. What terrifying energy! It would take at least 3 Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators to cause such a huge commotion, right? Sigh. It's only been 3 days since we entered the dark forest, and there are already 3 Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators taking action. It looks like that expert must have encountered some extremely terrifying danger to unleash such a terrifying armor technique. Yes, we need to be even more careful. After stopping and observing for a while, the figures began to become even more cautious. In an open space several hundred kilometers away from the Bloody Lotus, a young man with an indifferent expression stared at the Bloody Lotus in the distance. His somewhat good-looking brows slightly furrowed as he muttered to himself, "What terrifying undulations! Could it be a battle between 3 Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators?" However, there are no more than 20 Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators participating in the Origin Chi Tower battle this time. I know all of them, but none of them have a technique like this. So who is this person? Chapter 448. Heavily injured when the blood-red lotus bloomed in the sky, countless cultivators in the dark forest raised their heads to look at it. Their eyes were filled with awe. Although they had never personally experienced the power of the blood-red lotus, the terrifying aura emanating from the lotus alone was enough to make most cultivators tremble in fear. They knew that this move was not something an ordinary cultivator could use. It probably required a cultivator at the Ultimate Emperor realm or above to use such a terrifying move. In another part of the dark forest, 2 graceful figures were rapidly traversing through the forest. However, they quickly stopped and raised their heads to look at the distant horizon. The 2 graceful figures were extremely shocked when they saw the gigantic blood-red lotus blooming in the sky. They were stunned for a moment. What terrifying power! I wonder which monster is fighting. Hong Lian, who was dressed in a red dress, covered her cherry lips with her jade-like hand. Her beautiful eyes were filled with astonishment. This aura is so familiar. Beside Hong Lian stood a beautiful woman dressed in a blue veil. She was Qing Lian from the Jade Maiden Star Court. At this moment, Qing Lian's brows were slightly furrowed. Her beautiful eyes were fixated on the blood-red lotus in the distance. There was a trace of surprise on her face. "Senior sister Qing Lian, what's wrong? Do you know who's using this terrifying blood-red lotus?" Hong Lian asked curiously when she saw Qing Lian's astonished expression. Qing Lian shook her head and said, "No, I just feel that the aura of this blood-red lotus is somewhat familiar. However, I don't think it's him. After all, this blood-red lotus is too powerful. I'm afraid it's already at the Ultimate Emperor realm. He shouldn't have such strength." Hong Lian's cherry-red lips curled up slightly when she heard this. She slyly glanced at Qing Lian and said, "Senior sister Qing Lian, the him you're talking about wouldn't be Zhuowen, right?" Qing Lian's delicate body trembled when she heard this. She rolled her eyes at Hong Lian and said, "You always like to make wild guesses. Why are you suddenly talking about Zhuowen?" "Hee, senior apprentice sister, when you were in the Jade Lady Star Court, you always talked about Zhuowen. It should be pardonable for junior sister to have such a guess." Hong Lian rolled her eyes and giggled. A sliver of redness immediately appeared on Qing Lian's pale face when she heard that. She glared at Hong Lian and shook her head. "It's impossible for this person to be Zhuowen. The results of the test in the training square show that Zhuowen is only at the early second wheel of the King realm. It's impossible for him to unleash such a terrifying attack. I only feel that the presence is familiar. Reaching the early stage of the second wheel of the Ultimate Emperor realm is already very impressive. Look at me, your junior sister. I'm about the same age as that Zhuowen, and I'm only at the initial stage of the first cycle of the Ultimate Emperor realm. I have to admit that Zhuowen is a freak. He's clearly just a kid from a low-level city, but his cultivation speed is actually so fast." Speaking of Zhuowen, a strange glint flashed in Hong Lian's eyes. "You little girl, It's all your fault for being too lazy. In fact, your talent is much greater than mine. Even senior apprentice sister Luoxing once praised you. If you had been diligent in your cultivation, your strength would have surpassed mine by now. Qing Lian shook her head. Alright, after this Vitality Tower battle, I plan to cultivate seriously. Senior apprentice sister, let's go. Let's hurry to the training mountain. I'm looking forward to seeing what's inside the training mountain. Hong Lian curled her lips and immediately grabbed Qing Lian's jade-like hand and rushed into the depths of the dark forest. Qing Lian didn't refuse and allowed Hong Lian to pull her along. However, before leaving, she took one last look at the blood-red lotus in the distant sky and muttered in her heart, Zhuowen, if this person is really you, then it's good. Perhaps you really might be able to enter the third level of the tower. The blood-red lotus blossomed with an extremely mournful beauty. When it bloomed to the extreme, the entire blood-red lotus blossomed like a night-blooming epiphyllum. The blood-red petals on the edge withered one by one, leaving behind a terrifying ruin of several hundred feet. Whoosh! At the edge of the ruin, Zhuowen knelt on one knee on the ground, panting. His forehead was full of cold sweat, and his whole body was trembling and twitching. The backlash of the blood-red lotus is still so terrifying. Fortunately, I have the terrifying recovery ability of the Hell King's heart. Otherwise, I would have been seriously injured by the backlash instead of just being exhausted. After resting for a while, Zhuowen made his way to the center of the ruins with great difficulty. There was a huge crater that was dozens of feet deep. The Golden Giant and Lu Che should be in that crater. In Zhuowen's opinion, with the terrifying destructive power of the Blood Lotus, it should be able to destroy the Golden Giant. Coming to the edge of the pit, Zhuowen saw the Golden Giant in the pit. At this time, the Golden Giant was supporting itself with both hands. Its body was almost broken. Because the Golden Giant was not made of flesh and blood, there was no blood flowing out. It was just that many parts of its body were damaged, making it look quite miserable. Creak. Suddenly, the Golden Giant's body moved slightly, causing Zhuowen's eyelids to twitch. He cursed in his heart. Even the blood-red lotus was used. Could it be that he still couldn't deal with the Golden Giant? Rumble. The Golden Giant only moved slightly before it fell to the side. Its huge body began to turn into dazzling golden light spots that floated in the air. They drifted away with the wind and turned into nothingness. Cough cough. Zhuowen, I didn't expect you to hide such a move. I, Lu Che, have really underestimated you. A weak voice came from the pit. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. Only then did he realize that the Golden Giant was actually Lu Che. When the blood-red lotus exploded, Lu Che must have controlled the Golden Giant to protect him. However, the blood-red lotus was too powerful. Even with the Golden Giant's protection, Lu Che still suffered serious injuries. At this moment, Lu Che was in a sorry state within the deep pit. His clothes were tattered and his hair was disheveled. Numerous hideous wounds covered Lu Che's body, causing him to appear as though he was a bloody man. Lu Che stood up with great difficulty and looked at Zhuowen in horror. He never expected that Zhuowen would be able to use such a terrifying move. When he thought of the blood-red lotus, Lu Che felt a chill run down his spine. He could imagine that if it weren't for the Golden Giant, he would have died a long time ago. Just how many trump cards does Zhuowen have? First, it had a body that was as strong as a peak two-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. Then it had a terrifying Earth-rank spirit treasure. Now it was this blood-red lotus that was even more terrifying. Even the Golden Giant was annihilated by this blood-red lotus. The more Lu Che thought about it, the more shocked he became. At this time, Zhuowen was like a layer of fog that he couldn't see through. No, Zhuowen is too terrifying. I have to kill him. Otherwise, there will be no end of trouble. After recovering from his shock, the killing intent in Lu Che's heart grew even stronger. Zhuowen was only a second-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. Lu Che had used the Origin Source Talisman of the Everlasting Immortal Emperor Realm, but he still hadn't been able to kill Zhuowen. Instead, he had been forced into such a sorry state. If Zhuowen's cultivation had advanced a little more, wouldn't that mean that even the Everlasting Immortal Emperor might not have been able to kill him? When he thought of this, the killing intent in Lu Che's heart boiled. He reached into his clothes with his right hand and took out a golden talisman. He thought to himself, Zhuowen definitely won't expect me to have an origin talisman. I just need to secretly activate this talisman, and I'll be able to kill Zhuowen without anyone noticing. The power of the blood lotus just now was too terrifying. Lu Che didn't believe that Zhuowen didn't have to pay a price for using it. Looking at Zhuowen's pale face, the price of using the blood lotus was definitely not small. At this moment Zhuowen, who was at the edge of the deep pit, didn't notice Lu Che's abnormal actions at all. Just as Lu Che had guessed, Zhuowen didn't think that Lu Che would have a second origin talisman. After all, the power of an origin talisman was a little too terrifying. It was already extremely lucky to have one. Having two was just too abnormal. What Zhuowen never expected was that the everlasting old man had given Lu Che 3. If he had known, he definitely wouldn't have let his guard down. Lu Che's injuries are even more serious than mine. It's even difficult for him to move. He shouldn't be a threat anymore. Looking at the bloodied Lu Che in the pit, Zhuowen let out a sigh of relief. He didn't directly jump into the pit. It wasn't that Zhuowen didn't want to, but that he was really exhausted right now. He didn't have any extra energy to jump into the pit. Let's recover some yuan qi first before going down to deal with Lu Che. His eyes flashing, Zhuowen finally decided to heal his injuries first. His injuries were also quite serious. If he didn't heal them in time, there would be repercussions in the future. Kid, don't let your guard down. That Lu Che seems to be touching something in his chest. Suddenly, Xiao Hei's alert voice sounded in his head. Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He immediately looked at Lu Che in the pit. He saw that Lu Che, who was covered in wounds, had a sinister smile on his face. He stared fiercely at him and said, Zhuowen, do you think you've won? Hehe, I don't think so. Before I set out to kill you, the everlasting old man didn't give me one origin talisman but 3. Haha. With a loud laugh, Lu Che took out a golden talisman from his bosom with great difficulty. The golden light was so dazzling and eye-catching at this moment. Zhuowen, you're dead. You're dead. After using the blood lotus, your injuries aren't any lighter than mine. Otherwise, you would have already come down to kill me. Why haven't you come yet? Raising his right hand high, Lu Che roared in delight. He knew he had won. Chapter 449. The Spoils of War. How is this possible? This fellow actually has a destiny talisman? Zhuowen's pupils shrank to the size of needles as he cried out in disbelief. One must know that the might of a single destiny talisman had already caused him to be reduced to such a sorry state. If Lu Che were to use a second destiny talisman, then Zhuowen would really have to give up his life here. No, I must stop Lu Che. Otherwise, even if I have 2 lives, they won't be enough. At this moment, Zhuowen's heart was filled with anxiety. Lu Che's actions had already exceeded his expectations. Sigh, kid, this is what you get for showing off. Now you're out of luck. Don't worry, Lu Che's injuries are even more serious than yours. Leave it to me. Just as Zhuowen was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan, Xiao Hei's voice rang out. Soon after, a black light drilled out from between Zhuowen's brows and transformed into a Xiao Hei dog. Xiao Hei. Looking at the Xiao Hei dog in front of him, Zhuowen looked as if he had seen a life-saving straw. After Xiao Hei appeared, it waved its little paw, and an ink-black energy shot out from its paw like an arrow leaving a bow. Poochie! Lu Che, who was originally holding the life talisman in his hand and laughing complacently, also did not expect this unforeseen event. When he saw the black light rushing towards him, he instinctively wanted to activate the life talisman in his hand. However, the black light was too fast. Before Lu Che could activate it, the black light directly entered between his eyebrows. A pool of blood shot out from between Lu Che's brows. Soon after, Lu Che's eyes widened as he stared at Xiao Hei above him. Then he fell backwards, his furious eyes filled with disbelief. He had never imagined that the final outcome would be like this. He clearly had a powerful treasure like the Destiny Talisman on him, but he had ended up in such a state. I can't accept this. With a loud roar, Lu Che collapsed into the crater with his eyes wide open, unable to rest in peace. With a wave of her little claws, Xiao Hei immediately took Lu Che's Qianquan bag and the life talisman from his hand. She then tossed them to Zhuowen and said, "It's a good thing that Lu Che's injuries are so severe that he doesn't have any strength to resist. Otherwise, with this Dragon Lord's current soul state, killing him would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens." "Hee. Xiaohei, thank you so much this time," Zhuowen said with lingering fear. It had been too dangerous just now. If Lu Che had really activated his destiny talisman, even with Xiaohei, it would have been difficult to fight against him. "Brat, don't let your emotions affect your decisions in the future. Once a cultivator reaches the ultimate emperor realm, the gap between each cycle is enormous. You're only at the early stage of the second wheel, but you're already comparable to a peak second wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator. That's already extremely abnormal, but you should know that the gap between a peak second wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator and an early second wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator is like heaven and earth. The only reason you were able to break through Lu Che's destiny talisman was because he was careless. If Lu Che had known that you had such a powerful technique as the Blood Lotus, he probably wouldn't have stayed by the Golden Giant's side and would have hidden far, far away. The result of that was that you would be completely exhausted after using the Blood Lotus, while Lu Che would be completely unharmed. At this moment, Xiaohei's expression had become extremely solemn. Her sharp eyes stared coldly at Zhuowen. She knew that if she didn't say it out loud, Zhuowen probably wouldn't have realized just how dangerous the situation had been. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed when he heard this. Xiaohei was right. If Lu Che hadn't been so careless, he probably would have been the one to die this time. "I was too impulsive just now." Zhuowen smiled bitterly and shook his head. "It's good that you know. It's best if you don't act so impulsively in the future. With your potential and talent, it's only a matter of time before you catch up to LV Yongsheng. Right now, all you need to do is cultivate properly and work hard to improve yourself. As long as you reach the peak of the second wheel ultimate emperor realm, your strength will truly be comparable to an early third wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator. Even if you face LV Yongsheng, you won't have to fear him in the slightest." Xiaohei nodded approvingly. Clearly, she was quite satisfied with Zhuowen's current performance. As she spoke, Zhuowen's gaze shifted slightly and landed on the Qianquan pouch and the shining golden destiny talisman at the side. A trace of passion immediately appeared in his eyes. "Fortunately, I didn't lose out this time. Although I narrowly escaped death, I gained quite a lot," Zhuowen said happily as he grabbed the shining golden destiny talisman with a wave of his hand. The destiny talisman was only the size of a palm and was rectangular in shape. Complicated and strange runes were drawn on the surface of the destiny talisman. Upon closer inspection, Zhuowen discovered that the strange runes on the surface of the destiny talisman were very similar to the golden figure that Lu Che had summoned at the beginning. It's indeed not bad. The might of this destiny talisman is probably comparable to the might of the nine-wheel burning sky cauldron at its peak state. Its value is comparable to an Emperor Realm armor skill. If it weren't for the fact that this destiny talisman is a consumable item, its value would probably be even higher than an ordinary Emperor Realm armor skill. Xiaohei's gaze was also focused on the destiny talisman as she clicked her tongue in wonder. Zhuowen nodded when he heard this. In terms of might, this destiny talisman was actually on the same level as the Blood Lotus. However, because the destiny talisman was a consumable item, it didn't have any side effects on Zhuowen at all. The backlash from the Blood Lotus was just too terrifying. Even with the current quality of Zhuowen's body, he actually didn't have the slightest ability to fight against such a backlash. "Kid, the backlash from the Blood Lotus is just too great. Even if you've cultivated the Jadestone body tempering method to the peak, making your body comparable to a peak two-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, it's still completely useless against the backlash from the Blood Lotus. It's best if you use it sparingly in the future," Xiaohei suddenly said. Zhuowen couldn't help but smile bitterly when he heard this. The Blood Lotus was extremely powerful. When he first created this move on the Sandstone Isle, he didn't feel anything at all. At the time, his technique was still extremely immature and unpracticed. The blood lotus he created was only comparable to the full-powered attack of an early two-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. However, as Zhuowen continued to delve deeper into the principles of the blood-colored lotus, he became increasingly proficient at mixing them together. In the end, the blood-colored lotus formed from the mixture reached its most perfect state. The might of this perfect blood-colored lotus far exceeded Zhuowen's expectations. It could actually threaten a three-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Of course, the backlash from the perfect state of the blood lotus was also extremely great. After using it once, Zhuowen directly lost all ability to fight. If the blood lotus couldn't completely destroy the enemy, then Zhuowen would definitely be destroyed. This move was already extremely extreme. Why is the difference between the blood lotus and the ice and fire lotus so great? The backlash from the ice and fire lotus is almost negligible to me. But the backlash from the blood lotus makes me wish I was dead. The difference between the two is really too great. Shaking his head, Zhuowen rather missed the ice and fire lotus of the past. With his current physical quality, the backlash from the ice and fire lotus was just child's play. Hehe. Can the ice and fire lotus be compared to the blood lotus? The two aren't even on the same level in terms of power. The ice and fire lotus you created back then could only threaten a one-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. But the blood lotus can kill a two-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator and threaten a three-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Xiaohei sneered. Zhuowen nodded. He also knew that the two weren't on the same level in terms of power. But he was depressed and wanted to complain a little. Xiaohei, do you think that if my physical body was a little stronger, I would be able to completely resist the backlash from the blood lotus? Zhuowen seemed to have thought of something as his eyes lit up. Of course, the backlash from the explosion created by the ice and fire sacred symbol is mainly directed at the physical body. If your physical body is strong enough, you will naturally be able to withstand the backlash from the blood lotus. Actually, if you had the complete ice and fire sacred symbol, then you wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. The sacred symbol would automatically eliminate the backlash from the explosion for you. Xiaohei stroked his chin and smiled. The complete ice and fire sacred symbol? I can only go to Naga Divine Academy for this matter. After all, the complete ice and fire sacred symbol is still there. Zhuowen smiled bitterly. Hehe, kid, you might not be risking your life to go to Naga Divine Academy for the ice and fire sacred symbol. I'm afraid it's for Mu Qinxua. Xiaohei suddenly said somewhat mischievously. Zhuowen rubbed his nose when he heard this, and was slightly embarrassed. However, he couldn't help but recall that figure that was like a celestial maiden that had descended to the mortal world, and that charming kiss in the ancient abode. Perhaps this was the first time in so many years that Zhuowen had felt his heartbeat speed up. Shaking his head and wiping away the thoughts in his mind, Zhuowen knew that it was useless to think about it now. He had to use his actions to prove himself. Let's not talk about this anymore. Xiaohei, I've already practiced the jade stone body tempering technique to the peak. I don't know how I can improve my physical body next. Zhuowen came back to his senses and timely changed the topic. If you use the proper method, it will be very slow to improve your physical body. However, if you have a high-level body tempering technique, then your physical body will improve very quickly, just like the jade stone body tempering technique you obtained previously. Xiaohei pondered and said, high-level body tempering technique? Hearing this, Zhuowen shook his head, and there was a touch of bitterness on his face. Body tempering techniques were rarer than armor skills. The jade stone body tempering technique that Zhuowen obtained last time was a heaven-level body tempering technique. Therefore, if Zhuowen wanted to quickly improve his physical body, he would need at least an emperor-level body tempering technique. However, the rarity of an emperor-level body tempering technique was comparable to a superior emperor-level armor skill. It could be said that it was extremely rare. Perhaps even in the house of Marquis Qin, which had a rich heritage, there were not more than 5 emperor-level body tempering techniques. Didn't that Lu Nantian say that there are many treasures in the Training Mountain? Perhaps in the Training Mountain, you may be able to find a suitable emperor-level body tempering technique. Xiaohei suddenly said. Chapter 450. Lve Tao's guess. After about an hour, Zhuowen finally recovered some of the yuan qi in his body. He could finally move freely, but he was still far from fully recovered. At the very least, he could stand up. Kid, let's leave this place first. The commotion caused by your battle earlier was too great. It has already alerted many meta beasts in the dark forest, as well as some ancient warriors nearby. Xiaohei suddenly said solemnly after moving around for a while. Looks like we shouldn't stay here for long. With that, Zhuowen quickly put away the destiny talisman on the ground and stuffed Lu Chei's Qingquan bag into his waist. With a stomp of his foot, countless bolts of lightning spread out and turned into two huge lightning wings on his back. He immediately turned into a bolt of lightning and disappeared from where he was. About an hour after Zhuowen left, the roars of beasts resounded in the depths of the dark forest. Following that, a violent earthquake rumbled, and an exotic beast the size of a small mountain quickly swept out from the forest. The exotic beast's aura was extremely terrifying. Wherever it passed, the surrounding meta beasts would scatter like birds and beasts. In an instant, the entire dark forest was emitting a terrifying aura. Boom! The earthquake stopped and the exotic beast, that was the size of a small mountain, finally stopped in the small valley that had turned into ruins. Its red eyes swept across the ruins and finally focused on a huge deep pit not far away. It smelled an extremely strong smell of blood. Oh! The mutated beast roared and took a huge step forward. It arrived at the huge pit in an instant. When it saw Lu Chei lying in the huge pit with his eyes wide open, its breathing became heavier. It roared excitedly and opened its huge mouth, wanting to swallow Lu Chei's body whole. Boom! A transparent barrier immediately enveloped Lu Chei's corpse. The exotic beast that was originally pouncing towards Lu Chei's corpse crashed into the barrier, causing the ground to shake violently. What surprised everyone was that after the exotic beast the size of a small mountain crashed into the barrier, it actually let out a mournful cry and was directly sent flying. In the end, it landed on the ground a dozen or so meters away, cracking the ground and creating a small crater. Oh! The exotic beast struggled to get up. Its red eyes stared fixedly at an elegant figure floating in the air above the huge pit. It was a young man in white robes. There was always a trace of indifference on his face. Immature green nether beast? You're pretty strong. If an ordinary Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator encountered you, they might find you extremely troublesome. Unfortunately, you encountered me. If you don't want to die, leave now. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that I won't kill you next time. The young man in white robes stood in the air and shook his head. The blue nether beast was a gigantic origin beast that resembled a black panther. It was known for its speed. A young blue nether beast was extremely weak. Perhaps an Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator would be able to kill it. However, once the blue nether beast matured, its strength would increase by several times. It would be comparable to an Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Even a third-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator would choose to retreat if they encountered a green nether beast. They wouldn't fight it because it was a strenuous and unrewarding task. The green nether beast seemed to understand the young man in white's words. It roared in a low voice. Although its intelligence was low, it could still sense that this human cultivator was not to be trifled with. However, it didn't want to let go of a piece of meat that was already in its mouth. After a moment of hesitation, the green nether beast roared angrily. It stomped its huge feet on the ground and pounced towards the young man in white. What a reckless beast! Since you want to die so much, I'll fulfill your wish. The young man in white's eyelids drooped slightly. His arm that was as slender as a woman's reached out into the air. The space several dozen meters in front of him actually began to distort. The green nether beast that was pouncing towards the young man in white completely stopped 3 meters in front of him. It was as if time had stopped. Break! A faint voice rang out. The space several dozen meters around the green nether beast that was stopped in midair shattered. The scene was like a transparent glass shattering. The green nether beast that was in this shattered space didn't even make a sound before it turned into a bloody mist. The green nether beast was a meta beast that was comparable to a Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. However, It couldn't resist the young man in white at all. It was instantly killed. What kind of strength did this require? Whoosh! After the young man in white annihilated the green nether beast, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out behind him. The white-clothed young man furrowed his eyebrows as he turned his head to look. When he saw the graceful and pretty figure behind him, his furrowed eyebrows immediately relaxed. The corners of his mouth even revealed a slight smile as he said, "I really didn't expect younger sister Luo Xing to be nearby. Looks like Yi Tao has been a little rude." The graceful figure was graceful and elegant. From afar, she looked like a fairy wrapped in a sky full of stars. Wherever she passed, the stars were bright and dazzling. Wasn't she the #1 genius of the Jade Lady Star Court, Luo Xing? The young man in white was naturally the #1 genius of the House of Marquis Qin. LV Tao. Young Master LV, what a coincidence. Luo Xing replied in an indifferent manner. Immediately, her pretty eyes turned slightly, and her attention was focused on the ruins below. A trace of interest surfaced in her pretty eyes as she faintly asked, "Does young Master Lu know what happened here?" Hearing this, LV Tao shook his head and said, "I was a few hundred kilometers away from this place. Because I saw that enormous blood-red lotus, I hurried over here. However, when I arrived here, the battle here had already ended. I also rushed here, because of the blooming blood lotus. The ruins within a few hundred meters should be caused by the unknown blood lotus. I'm quite curious about the guy who can release such a terrifying move." Luo Xing nodded. LV Tao nodded and said doubtfully, "The blood lotus is indeed terrifying. If I'm not wrong, the one who released the blood lotus must be an ultimate emperor stage expert. However, I know all the ultimate emperor stage experts in the Vitality Tower battle, but none of them have a similar move." Oh, Luo Xing's beautiful face revealed a trace of surprise when she heard this. She chuckled and said, "Maybe it's a genius who is hiding his strength. After all, if a cultivator wants to, he can hide part of his strength during the Heavenly Monolith test. That's possible. Moreover, this hidden expert is most likely not a cultivator from our province capital. It seems that Lord Father was right. This year's Essence Tower battle is indeed the most prosperous. There are quite a few dark horses in it." LV Tao nodded in agreement. "Moreover, there's a corpse in the deep pit below. It should be the one who lost the battle just now. Let's go down and see who this person is. As long as we recognize this person, we might be able to deduce the identity of the cultivator who killed him." As he spoke, LV Tao's figure flashed, and he instantly arrived beside the corpse in the deep pit. Luo Xing's beautiful eyes flashed. She stepped lightly on the void and slowly landed behind LV Tao. At this moment, LV Tao's expression was solemn. He flipped over the corpse and carefully examined its appearance. After a moment of silence, he said, "If I remember correctly, this person should be the #1 genius of Tyrant Chu City, Lu Che. He's an early-stage Ultimate Emperor stage expert." Tyrant Chu City's Lu Che. He's only an early-stage Ultimate Emperor stage expert? This kind of strength doesn't seem to be enough to cause such a huge commotion, right? Luo Xing frowned slightly and said doubtfully, "That's true. However, I heard that the city lord of Tyrant Chu City is obsessed with talismans. The talismans he creates are all very powerful, especially his natal talisman. Its power is comparable to an Ultimate Emperor stage expert. This Lu Che is considered the #1 genius of Tyrant Chu City. I'm afraid that the old man would give him a natal talisman to save his life. With a natal talisman, Lu Che's strength should be comparable to an Ultimate Emperor stage expert. However, from the looks of it, even with the natal talisman, Lu Che still lost in the end." LV Tao smiled faintly. "So it's a natal talisman. The old man's natal talisman is indeed quite powerful. If Lu Che had a natal talisman, he would indeed have the qualifications to fight against an Ultimate Emperor stage expert. However, with the power of a natal talisman, Lu Che should have been able to easily escape from an Ultimate Emperor stage expert. Why did he die so miserably instead?" Luo Xing's heart grew more and more doubtful. She looked at Lu Che, who had died with his eyes open. LV Tao's eyes narrowed when he heard this. He said in surprise, "Little sister Luo Xing is right. With a natal talisman, Lu Che should have been able to escape from an ultimate emperor stage expert. However, he died. I'm afraid that the person who killed him is extremely powerful. Perhaps it's at least at the peak of the ultimate emperor stage. Luo Xing's eyes flickered when she heard Lve Tao's words. She was also surprised. A peak three-wheel emperor was enough to rank in the top 100 of the Azure Emperor rankings. Qin Batian and Su Tianliang were only at the peak of the three-wheel emperor realm. But now, there was actually a nameless person who actually possessed such strength. How could Luo Xing not be surprised? It looks like there are quite a few low-key experts in the Origin Qi Tower this time. I've never heard of them before. Lve Tao frowned slightly and shook his head. Their guesses were naturally far from the truth. Zhuowen's strength was at most comparable to a peak Emperor stage expert. If a true ultimate Emperor stage expert had come, he would definitely be no match for them. Killing Lu Che was completely due to Zhuowen's luck. If Lu Che had stood far away, he wouldn't have been affected by the power of the Blood Lotus. Unfortunately, Lu Che had been too confident. He thought that he had defeated Zhuowen for sure. Thus, standing on the Golden Giant's shoulder, he had become a live target for Zhuowen. It looks like this Origin Qi Tower battle will be much more exciting than the previous ones. I'm looking forward to it. Young Master LV, I still have to rush to the training mountain. I'll be leaving first. Luo Xing nodded slightly. She didn't wait for Lve Tao to speak. Her elegant figure turned into starlight and disappeared from the valley. Chapter 451. Tattered cloth. Dark clouds descended, like a black dragon wreaking havoc in the sky, covering the stars in the sky. The night in the dark forest was especially desolate. The deep darkness was accompanied by the roars of beasts. In this lonely forest, a tragic and terrifying atmosphere converged. In the depths of the forest, in a remote cliff, there was an extremely inconspicuous small cave. Wisps of dim yellow light seeped out from the cracks of the cave entrance, making it seem misty and mysterious. A faintly discernible figure, under the illumination of the dim yellow light, appeared to be a flickering shadow. This cave is extremely well hidden. Ordinary martial artists or meta beasts would not be able to discover it. It just so happens that I can stay in the cave for 3 days and recover from my injuries first. Inside the cave, a slender young man with black hair and black eyes sat on a knee-high rock. The young man carried a blood-red spear on his back, and his clothes were somewhat tattered. At this moment, he was throwing dry wood into the bonfire beside him. Opposite the bonfire floated a palm-sized Xiaohei dog. At this moment, this Xiaohei dog rubbed its chin with its paws and laughed. This cave is really not bad. If the cave entrance is hidden, no one will be able to discover it. Kid, you can take a look at Lu Che's Qingquan bag. With Chu Bacheng's background, the things in Lu Che's Qingquan bag should be quite valuable. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded and took out a bloodstained Qingquan bag from his waist. His Naiwan palace moved and his mental strength entered the Qingquan bag. After a while, Zhuowen's face suddenly revealed a look of ecstasy. He stuttered a little and said, Xiaohei, there seems to be a natal talisman in Lu Che's Qingquan bag. Xiaohei, who was originally leisurely and contented, almost fell to the ground after hearing this. His little black eyes were filled with disbelief as he said, What? There's another natal talisman? Could it be that the Wuji old man actually gave Lu Che 3 natal talismans? It should be. As he said this, Zhuowen stretched out his right hand and directly took out a golden talisman with strange symbols on it. It was the natal talisman. It really is a natal talisman. This everlasting old man was truly generous. He actually gave Lu Che 3 life talismans at once. However, if that limitless old man were to know that 2 of his life talismans had fallen into your hands, I wonder if that old man would be so angry that he would vomit blood? After recovering from his shock, Xiaohei suddenly laughed coldly. His face was filled with a gloating expression. Zhuowen also smiled. He was also looking forward to it. If the limitless old man knew that the natal talisman that he had painstakingly refined had fallen into the hands of Zhuowen, who he wanted to kill, what kind of expression would he show? Zhuowen solemnly put away this life source talisman. He knew that these 2 life source talismans would become his sharpest trump card. At the very least, By relying on these two life source talismans, it shouldn't be too much of a problem for him to reach the third floor of the Essence Chi Tower. Zhuowen once again probed Zhuowen's Qingquan bag. He discovered that apart from the most precious natal talismans, the other items were basically not of much use to him. For example, some high-grade spirit treasures and heaven-tier armor skills were of little use to him. Therefore, Zhuowen only gave them a cursory glance before stuffing them all into his Qingquan bag. Although these items were of little use to him, after the battle for the Origin Chi Tower was over, he could bring them back to Zhuo family. After all, the development of Zhuo family also required a considerable amount of resources. These things were no different from priceless treasures to the Zhuo family. This is... Suddenly, Zhuowen's gaze converged on a remote corner of the Qingquan bag. There was a somewhat tattered piece of cloth lying quietly in that corner. For some reason, Zhuowen actually felt a taboo aura from this tattered piece of cloth. A piece of cloth can actually give me a taboo aura. This piece of cloth isn't simple. Frowning slightly, Zhuowen faintly felt that this tattered piece of cloth wasn't simple. Thinking of this, Zhuowen waved his right hand and immediately caught the piece of cloth in his palm. The cloth was extremely small, only the size of Zhuowen's palm. At first glance, it simply looked like an ordinary item. However, Zhuowen's mental power was extremely powerful and sharp. He could feel the strange fluctuations within the cloth. These fluctuations were very special. If it weren't for Zhuowen's sharp senses, he would definitely have thought that this piece of cloth was an ordinary item and wouldn't have paid much attention to it. Xiaohei, this piece of cloth is a little strange. Can you recognize what it is? After racking his brains to no avail, Zhuowen finally asked Xiaohei for help. At this moment, Xiaohei's brows were slightly furrowed. A pair of small, black eyes stared straight at the cloth in Zhuowen's palm. A rare trace of seriousness appeared on his face. When Zhuowen took out the cloth, Xiaohei had already focused his attention on it. Kid, the fluctuation on this cloth is extremely powerful. Furthermore, it's a mental fluctuation. The strength of this fluctuation is probably far beyond the level of a 4th, or even 5th tier Arcana Master. If this Dragon Lord's guess is correct, the previous owner of this cloth was very likely a 6th tier Arcana Master, Xiaohei said with a serious expression. Hiss, a 6th tier Arcana Master? Hearing this, Zhuowen couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. After all, the status of Arcana Masters in the Qingxian Empire was extremely high. It had already exceeded Zhuowen's imagination. A mere 4th tier Arcana Master was someone that even Lu Nantian, Marquis Muqin, didn't dare to offend too much. If it was a 5th tier Arcana Master, Lu Nantian would even have to be respectful. Even the Azure Emperor of the Qingxian Empire wouldn't dare to be presumptuous towards a 5th tier Arcana Master. However, there wasn't a single 6th tier Arcana Master in the entire Qingxian Empire. Perhaps only a few superpowers in the Eastern lands had 6th tier Arcana Masters, such as the Blue Dragon Hall and the Excellent Gods Academy, and so on. Very soon, Zhuowen's gaze became extremely heated. He stared at the cloth in his palm and said, "It's actually something that belonged to a 6th tier Arcana Master. That's a legendary existence. Something left behind by someone like that definitely isn't simple. However, this cloth looks so tattered. Even if it's something that belonged to a 6th tier Arcana Master, it probably isn't some kind of treasure, right?" Xiaohei said somewhat doubtfully as she looked at the ordinary cloth in front of her. However, Zhuowen shook his head and said, "Arcana Masters have many different methods. You can't tell what's special about this cloth, but I can." Zhuowen cultivated the Myriad Evolution scripture of the Myriad Evolution sect. His mental strength was much stronger than that of ordinary 3rd tier Arcana Masters. The current Zhuowen's mental strength was probably no weaker than that of a 4th tier Arcana Master. However, the quality of his mental strength was much weaker than that of a 4th tier Arcana Master. Even so, Zhuowen's mental strength far exceeded that of a 3rd tier Arcana Master at the consummation of the 3rd tier. That makes sense. Try using your mental strength to sense this cloth. Perhaps you might be able to tell what's different about it. Xiaohei nodded and said seriously, "All right, As he spoke, Zhuowen's Naiwen palace moved. His mental energy, which was as vast as the sea, surged out and entered the cloth in his palm. There's resistance? When Zhuowen's mental strength came into contact with the cloth, he immediately sensed a strange ripple on the surface of the cloth. It seemed to have become an iron wall, directly blocking out Zhuowen's mental strength. Breakthrough. His eyes narrowed as the Naiwen palace in his sea of consciousness buzzed gently. An even greater amount of mental strength immediately surged out, turning into a sharp blade. It immediately pierced through the obstruction on the surface of the cloth and successfully entered it. After breaking through the obstruction of the ripples around the cloth, Zhuowen felt like the stars in front of him had shifted, as if he had traveled through space. The scene before him had turned into a spiral-like black hole, and his mind was directly sucked in by this black hole. When Zhuowen opened his eyes, he saw that the scene before him was actually a vast starry sky. Below the starry sky was an endless void of darkness. Zhuowen hovered in the void as he stared at the starry sky in confusion. Boom! Suddenly, the star closest to Zhuowen suddenly exploded. The blazing light almost caused Zhuowen to cover his eyes involuntarily. When Zhuowen opened his eyes again, he was surprised to discover a figure with fluttering clothes slowly walking over from the exploding star. It was an old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion. His beard was spotlessly white, and he actually covered a distance of thousands of meters with just a casual walk. A sage-like aura emanated from the old man. The old man held a horsetail whisk in his hand. His eyes were as sharp as a hawk's as he suddenly stared at Zhuowen. A scorching light flickered in the depths of his eyes as he laughed aloud. Young friend, I really never thought that you would actually be able to obtain the cloth I left behind. Even more so, I never thought that you would actually be an arcana master as well. As he spoke, the old man once again carefully scrutinized Zhuowen, repeatedly nodding his head as he said, "Little friend, your fortune is not shallow. You actually possess the 10,000 expansion sects, 10,000 expansion scripture. There's actually the presence of saint talismans as well. It's the icy fire saint talisman and the wind lightning saint talisman. It's a pity that they're both incomplete." Zhuowen's heart churned like a storm when he heard that. Just who was the old man before him? He had even discovered his greatest secrets, the wind lightning saint talisman and the icy fire saint talisman. Moreover, he had even pointed out that the two saint talismans were incomplete. Who is this old man? How does he know my secrets? Xiaohei, do you know who this old man is? Zhuowen's face was filled with shock as he hurriedly sent a message to Xiaohei. However, what shocked Zhuowen was that no matter how he called out to Xiaohei, he did not receive any response. There's no need to try calling out to the spirit in your sea of consciousness. The place you're currently in is the spiritual world that I created. There's no way for you to make any contact with the outside world. The old man smiled. There was an unfathomable expression on his face. It can't be. This old man even knows about Xiaohei's existence. After calling out to Xiaohei to no avail, Zhuowen knew that the old man was probably telling the truth. The place he was currently in should be the spiritual world that the old man had created. Chapter 452. The Mysterious Old Man. Young friend, there is no need to be so nervous. The fact that you are able to enter the spiritual world within the cloth means that your spiritual force talent has already reached the required level. Otherwise, even if you obtain the cloth, you would not be able to enter the spiritual world. The white-haired old man smiled as he changed the topic. My spiritual force talent has reached the required level? Zhuowen stared solemnly at the old man in front of him. The more he looked at him, the more he felt that the old man before him was not simple. The old man's every move gave off a strange fluctuation. Zhuowen knew that if the old man wanted to, he could annihilate him at any time. That's right. This old man has set up a restriction on this cloth. Only when one's spiritual force talent has reached the required level can one enter the spiritual world through the cloth. And you, young fellow, are not simple at all. You have actually cultivated such a powerful secret skill, like the myriad evolution scripture. In the future, young fellow, your future is limitless. Naturally, You have the qualifications to obtain the inheritance within the cloth. The white-haired old man said. The cloth contains a spiritual force secret skill that this old man has created. Just now, this old man has inspected your body and found that you actually have 4 types of earth fire. It seems that your opportunity is not small. Hee. Then this old man's spiritual force secret skill is even more suitable for you. The white-haired old man's eyes flashed as he said, Oh, a spiritual force secret skill that is suitable for me? What kind of spiritual force secret skill is it? Hearing this, Zhuowen said energetically, Once you leave the spiritual world, the spiritual force secret skill will naturally appear within the cloth. Because you have cultivated the myriad evolution scripture, this old man is also very interested in the spiritual world. Thus, this old man pulled you into the spiritual world to meet you. At this point, the white-haired old man suddenly rubbed his hands together in a wretched manner. He shamelessly approached Zhuowen and said, Young fellow, what is it? Can you lend this old man the myriad evolution scripture? Seeing the old man who originally had a sage-like demeanor actually reveal a wretched expression, Zhuowen immediately felt a trace of strangeness in his heart. A trace of hesitation appeared on his face. Zhuowen had obtained the myriad derivation scripture by chance. Zhuowen was hesitant to hand it over to this white-haired old man, whom he had met for the first time. Nonetheless, Zhuowen knew that the elder in front of him was already being very polite to him. After all, someone who could construct such a massive spiritual world was definitely not an ordinary person. A powerhouse like that could kill him with a wave of his hand. The white-haired old man also saw the hesitant expression on Zhuowen's face. He slapped his forehead and said, Looks like this old man is a little too direct. Kid, this old man will not borrow your 10,000 yen true scripture for free. I will exchange it with you on equal terms. How about this? I can see that your spiritual power has already reached the pinnacle of the 3rd rank. You're only 1 step away from becoming a 4th rank arcana master. As he spoke, the white-haired old man wretchedly rubbed his hands and shamelessly approached Zhuowen. If you can lend this old man the 10,000 yen true scripture, this old man will help you raise your spiritual power to the 4th rank arcana master. What do you think? Hearing this, the hesitation on Zhuowen's face instantly vanished. His eyes flickered with a bright light as he hurriedly nodded and said, If you can help me break through to become a 4th rank arcana master, then I can lend you the myriad derivation scripture. However, can you really help me break through to the 4th rank arcana master? Ever since his spiritual power reached the pinnacle of the 3rd rank, Zhuowen felt that the spiritual power in his Naiwan palace was progressing at an extremely slow pace. He had heard that an arcana master who reached the 4th rank would undergo an earth-shattering change, a true metamorphosis. In the past, arcana masters were thought to be extremely weak in battle. If a fighter of the same rank were to fight an arcana master, the fighter would completely crush the arcana master. However, once an arcana master reached the 4th rank, an earth-shattering change would occur. This was because once an arcana master reached the 4th rank, their spiritual power would become extremely condensed and resilient. It was precisely because a 4th rank arcana master's spiritual power was simply too powerful that a 4th rank arcana master could rely on their spiritual power to attack and defend. Their spiritual power could completely resist an earth-tier spirit treasure. Because Zhuowen cultivated the 10,000 yen true scripture, his Naiwan palace had a total of 81 strands of spiritual power. If Zhuowen's spiritual power really did reach the 4th rank, his spiritual power alone would probably be on par with an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. If Zhuowen's spiritual power broke through to the 4th rank, Zhuowen would no longer need to fear LV Yongsheng. Seeing that Zhuowen was doubting him, the white-haired old man immediately glared at him and snorted, I'm just helping you forcefully break through to the 4th rank. What's so difficult about that? It's as easy as lifting a finger for me. With that, an extremely terrifying presence erupted from the white-haired old man's body. The presence was as vast as the ocean, as vast as the starry sky. Before this presence, Zhuowen was like a small boat that could capsize at any time in a storm. He was insignificant and insignificant. What a powerful presence. How can it be so powerful? A sliver of shock finally appeared on Zhuowen's face. The white-haired old man's presence was so vast that he could not resist it at all. Zhuowen could sense that even the Qin Marquis Lu Nanshan's presence was not even 1,000th of the white-haired old man's. This old man was just too terrifying. Who is this old man? Why is his presence so terrifying? At this moment, Zhuowen's body actually began to show signs of collapsing under the presence. Strands of red blood flowed from his exposed body, making him appear miserable and savage. The white-haired old man also saw Zhuowen's strange appearance and hurriedly withdrew his aura. He glanced at Zhuowen apologetically and said, "Now you know how powerful this old man is. Come here. I'll help you with the enlightenment right now, and help you break through to the 4th rank." With that, the white-haired old man waved his right hand, and a powerful force immediately pulled Zhuowen in front of him. He extended a skinny arm and gently tapped Zhuowen's forehead. Zhuowen only felt a cool sensation between his brows. Soon after, dense spiritual power flowed from the old man's hand into Zhuowen's Naiwen Palace. Rumble! The Naiwen Palace was like a sudden clap of thunder. The spiritual power within it transformed into a whirlpool. Like rivers flowing into the sea, it sucked in all the spiritual power that the white-haired old man poured into the Naiwen Palace without any resistance. As the spiritual power continued to enter, the whirlpool of spiritual power in the Naiwen Palace rapidly expanded. Finally, it enveloped the entire Naiwen Palace. When the whirlpool expanded to its maximum size, it exploded with a bang, and the whirlpool of spiritual power turned into a rain of light. Countless rain of light gathered in the Naiwen Palace. Finally, the capacity of the spiritual power in the Naiwen Palace became much smaller than before. However, Zhuowen could feel that this spiritual power was much more resilient than before. If the spiritual power in the Naiwen Palace was described as a weak thread in the past, then the current spiritual power in the Naiwen Palace was like a steel wire that was as strong as steel. Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes. A ray of light suddenly burst out from his eyes. His face was filled with excitement. At the same time, countless spiritual storms rose around Zhuowen and wreaked havoc in the air. The space around him was directly torn to shreds by these spiritual storms. Is this the power of a grade 4 spiritual power? Feeling the terrifying destructive spiritual storms in the air, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with joy. The destructive power of a grade 4 spiritual power had somewhat exceeded his expectations. Kid, since this old man has already enlightened you and helped you break through, then you should let this old man borrow the Myriad Evolution Scripture. The white-haired old man rubbed his hands and approached Zhuowen once again. Thank you, Senior. This time, you have really helped me a lot. It is natural for me to let you borrow the Myriad Evolution Scripture. If it were not for the fact that I have not completely mastered the Myriad Evolution Scripture, I would have directly given it to you. Zhuowen gratefully clasped his hands. With a wave of his right hand, he took out a piece of metal from his Qianquan bag and handed it to the white-haired old man. Senior, this piece of metal contains the Myriad Evolution Scripture. The white-haired old man hurriedly took the piece of metal and said with a smile, Kid, you are quite straightforward. This old man likes your character. However, you can rest assured that this old man is only looking at it. After looking at it, I will naturally return it to you. I will not take advantage of you. Hearing this, Zhuowen lightly sighed in his heart. What he was most afraid of was that this terrifying old man in front of him would directly take the Myriad Evolution Scripture and not return it. With this old man's terrifying strength, Zhuowen simply did not have the ability to take back the Myriad Evolution Scripture from the white-haired old man. After saying this, the white-haired old man no longer paid attention to Zhuowen. Instead, he began to concentrate on looking at the Myriad Evolution Scripture in the piece of metal. With the passage of time, the old man's brows would occasionally relax and frown. Sometimes he would curse loudly. Sometimes he would slap the table and shout. His behavior was similar to that of a madman. After about an hour, the white-haired old man took a deep breath. A trace of light flashed in his eyes. He laughed heartily and said, So that's how it is. No wonder the Myriad Evolution Scripture has the effect of dividing spiritual power. It turns out that this is the principle. Why didn't this old man expect it? It's really wonderful. Haha. The white-haired old man looked up to the sky and laughed crazily. With a stomp of his foot, he actually disappeared from where he was. In the next moment, he was thousands of miles away, almost turning into a Xiaohei dot. Whoosh! The piece of metal turned into a black light and gently fell into Zhuowen's palm. At the same time, the white-haired old man's laughter was like rolling thunder, reverberating through the entire void. Little guy, this time, I really have to thank you. This old man has searched for the myriad evolution scripture for thousands of years, but I have not found any clues. I did not expect that the cloth I casually left behind would actually bring you to this old man. Moreover, you have the myriad evolution scripture with you. It seems that the heavens are really helping me. Haha. Little guy, your talent is very good. Perhaps in the near future, we will meet again. Now this old man will take his leave first. The white-haired old man's wild laughter rang in his ears. Zhuowen's eyes were also filled with surprise. Just looking for the myriad evolution scripture had taken thousands of years. What kind of old monster was this? After all, a cultivator, who could live for thousands of years, would at least be in the Emperor realm. This old man is at least an Imperial Power realm expert, isn't he? How terrifying. I am actually lucky enough to meet a legendary Emperor realm cultivator. Moreover, it seems that this old man's spiritual power cultivation is also extremely terrifying. He is at least a 6th grade arcana master. What an old monster. Chapter 453. Fire Fusion Technique Kid. Hurry up and wake up. In the cave, Xiaohei stared solemnly at Zhuowen, who had suddenly become sluggish in front of the campfire. After Zhuowen had tried to examine the cloth in his hand, he had instantly become like this. What's going on with this cloth? After this kid's mental energy came into contact with the cloth, he became so dispirited. Just as Xiaohei was at a loss of what to do, an extremely powerful aura suddenly surged out of Zhuowen's body. The surging mental energy was like a vast ocean that spread throughout the entire cave. What a powerful mental energy. How can this mental energy be so powerful? It's almost comparable to a grade 4 arcana master. Seeing the sudden surge of mental energy from Zhuowen's body, Xiaohei was stunned at first, but soon after, a look of disbelief appeared on his face. He said, "This kid can't have broken through, right? He broke through just like that after being in a daze for a while. This is really..." Xiaohei did not know what to say, and could only curse to express the pain in his heart. However, he also knew that Zhuowen's sudden breakthrough had something to do with the cloth. The powerful aura came and went quickly. When the aura in Zhuowen's body had completely disappeared, Zhuowen's eyelids moved slightly, and he slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was filled with surprise. "Kid, what happened? Why did your mental energy suddenly break through to grade 4? Xiaohei's figure flashed, and he appeared in front of Zhuowen, his face full of confusion. Looking at the confused Xiaohei in front of him, Zhuowen did not hide anything and told him everything that had happened in the spiritual world. Xiaohei had been with him for many years, and he was not an outsider to him. There was no need to hide such things from Xiaohei. After listening to Zhuowen's story, Xiaohei's face was filled with astonishment. He repeatedly praised Zhuowen's luck for being able to meet an Imperial Realm powerhouse and obtain such a great opportunity. That old man once said that the cloth contained a secret spiritual technique that he had created. I wonder what this secret spiritual technique is. Zhuowen seemed to have thought of something, and his gaze immediately converged on the cloth in his palm. He saw that the originally empty cloth was actually filled with dense ink black characters. Fire Fusion Technique. At the top of the dense black ink, there were 3 large words: Fire Fusion Technique. The strokes were like dragons and snakes, and the tip of each stroke was 3 feet long. After seeing the name of this secret spiritual technique, Zhuowen faintly felt that this fire fusion technique should be of great help to him. When he was in the spiritual world, the white-haired old man had said that this secret spiritual technique was extremely suitable for Zhuowen. After about an hour, Zhuowen had basically finished reading the words on the cloth. When his gaze swept across the last word, Zhuowen let out a sigh of relief, and his face revealed a trace of ecstasy. This fire fusion technique was too suitable for him, as if it was a secret spiritual technique that was tailor-made for him. The fire fusion technique, as the name suggested, was a secret spiritual technique that used one's mental energy to fuse different flames. Moreover, it was a secret spiritual technique that specialized in fusing the extremely powerful earth fire. According to the introduction, the highest level of the fire fusion technique was that as long as 9 different earth fires were fused, one would be able to create a brand new flame. This flame's power was comparable to the heavenly fire, and it was called 9-colored refining flame. This fire fusion technique can actually artificially create heavenly fire? Isn't this a little too unbelievable? After reading all the contents of the fire fusion technique, Zhuowen couldn't help but gasp. Zhuowen naturally knew about heavenly fire. It was the ultimate flame, whose power surpassed that of earth fire. It was said that every heavenly fire on the heavenly armor continent possessed extremely high intelligence. Some had even cultivated to become spirits, and could transform into human form to cultivate. It was extremely abnormal. Heavenly fire was a flame bestowed by the heavens, the king of all flames. Of course, in the boundless heavenly armor continent, heavenly fire was extremely rare. In the tens of thousands of years of heavenly armor continent's history, the number of heavenly fire that had appeared had never exceeded 2 digits. This was enough to prove how rare heavenly fire was. Kid, this fire fusion technique is amazing. When cultivated to the highest level, it can actually fuse 9 different earth fires and create a heavenly fire called 9-colored refining flame. Xiao He also browsed through the contents of the cloth and said with wide eyes, "Haha, the 9-wheel burning sky cauldron originally needed to gather 9 different earth fire origins to successfully activate its full power. However, the fire fusion technique can fuse 9 different earth fires. Both of these required me to gather earth fires. It seems like the will of the heavens wants me to gather earth fires." Zhuowen said in a good mood. Hehe, the power of earth fire isn't something that an ordinary person can withstand. Moreover, without a corresponding container to contain the earth fire origin, no matter how strong one is, one may not be able to successfully tame earth fire. Kid, you're extremely lucky. Not only do you have a treasure like the ice fire sacred charm that can suppress earth fire, you also have a container like the 9-wheel burning sky cauldron that can contain earth fire. It can be said that collecting earth fire is a lot easier for you. The only thing you lack is clues about earth fire. Xiao He rolled her eyes. That's true. However, I already have 4 types of earth flames in my body. I wonder, after cultivating this fire-fusing art, and fusing all 4 types of earth flames, what level of power would it reach? Zhuowen grinned. If you fuse all 4 earth fires together, its power shouldn't be as strong as the blood lotus. However, the difference shouldn't be too great. It shouldn't be a problem to kill a second-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator. Xiao He quietly analyzed. As if thinking of something, Zhuowen suddenly had an idea and said, if I fuse the 4 earth fires together to create a new flame, and then use this new flame to fuse with the extreme frost, how powerful will the ice and fire energy created be? Xiao He couldn't help but be stunned when he heard this. He nodded and said, that's a good idea. If the 4 types of earth flames were to create a new flame, and fuse it with the extreme cold ice, the ice and fire energy created would definitely far surpass the blood-colored lotus. However, are you sure you can endure the backlash? The backlash from the blood lotus is already enough for me to withstand. There's no need to even talk about the even more powerful ice and fire energy created by the fusion of the new flame. Zhuowen bitterly shook his head. That's why, right now, your most important task is to obtain a powerful Emperor Tier body tempering technique. Only a Emperor Tier body tempering technique can quickly increase the quality of your current body, Xiao He said. If it's a Emperor Tier body tempering technique, then I can only hope that the training mountain has such a body tempering technique. Zhuowen nodded and said, there's no need to rush. Right now, if you want to cross the dark forest to reach the training mountain, you'll need at least a month. That Lu Nantian once said that the training mountain will begin in 2 months. You don't need to rush to the training mountain. You can practice the fire fusion technique as you hurry. The power of the fire fusion technique is pretty good. Hearing Xiaohei's words, Zhuowen nodded in agreement. Now that Zhuowen's mental strength had reached the initial 4th level, his strength had more than doubled. Perhaps even an initial stage Emperor stage expert would be unable to do anything to Zhuowen. I'll try to comprehend the fire fusion technique first. It's best if I can completely comprehend it before entering the training mountain. This way, I'll have one more trump card. After saying that, Zhuowen didn't say anything else. Instead, he silently sat cross-legged in front of the bonfire and began to comprehend the fire fusion technique within the cloth. Thousands of miles away from the dark forest, the majestic training mountain quietly stood between the heavens and the earth. At the peak of the mountain, which reached into the clouds, was an extremely large platform. At this moment, close to 1,000 people were standing on the platform, silently observing a stone tablet in the center of the platform. This stone tablet was hundreds of feet tall, and its appearance was exactly the same as the worldly tablet in the training plaza. Clearly, there was also a worldly tablet at the peak of the training mountain. Moreover, the names on this worldly tablet were neatly arranged, and it was much simpler than the one in the training plaza. In front of the 1,000 people stood 5 transcendent figures. Naturally, they were the Lu Nantian, the master of the meteorite, and the other 2 giants. The dark forest is indeed full of danger. It's only been 3 days, and more than 50 people have already been eliminated. Guyu Tian stared intently at the heaven and earth tablet in an inconspicuous spot in the group. At this moment, there were already over 50 names on the heaven and earth tablet that had dimmed. This meant that these people had already been eliminated and died. Brother Gu, there's no need to be too worried. I can see that the 3 contestants from Vine Armor City aren't simple. They probably won't die in the dark forest. Qiu Chou, who was standing beside Guyu Tian, smiled faintly. I'm not too worried about Zhuowen. He's extremely strong. I'm worried about Gu Xian and Hu Wuying. They're both slightly weaker. Only half-step Ultimate Emperor realm. In the dark forest, which is full of danger, this kind of strength isn't enough. Guyu Tian shook his head. You're all that confident that Zhuowen won't be in danger? However, this old man thinks that Zhuowen is dead for sure. Hee. A cold laugh suddenly came from the side, causing Guyu Tian, Qiu Chou, and Ouyang Yuntu to frown. They stared at the sneering old man. Old man Wuji, you're so sure that Zhuowen is dead for sure? You're too sure. Qiu Chou retorted. Hee. Do you think that little bastard will still be alive after offending our tyrant Chu City? Old man Wuji laughed sinisterly. So you're saying that you sent Lu Che to kill Zhuowen? Hee. Although Lu Che is strong, his ranking on the worldly tablet is lower than Zhuowen's. I'm afraid that he'll be killed after catching up to Zhuowen. At that time, your tyrant Chu City will lose a monstrous genius. Qiu Chou sneered. Hee. Lu Che won't fail because this old man gave Lu Che a natal talisman. No matter how heaven-defying that Zhuowen is, he won't be able to resist the power of a natal talisman. Old man Wuji laughed proudly. What? Natal talisman? Old man Wuji, you're truly despicable. Qiu Chou, Guyu Tian, and Ouyang Yuntu's expressions changed greatly. They naturally knew that old man Wuji was proficient in talismans. Chapter 454. Everyone was taken aback. Old man Wuji sure is generous. He's even given his natal talisman to Lu Che. Old man Wuji's natal talisman is extremely powerful. If one hasn't reached the ultimate emperor stage, they'll basically die a horrible death under the natal talisman. Zhuowen's talent is indeed great, but he's only at the ultimate emperor stage. He's no match for Lu Che, who has a natal talisman. The confrontation between old man Wuji and Qiu Chou attracted the attention of a few cultivators in the surroundings. In particular, when they heard about the natal talisman, they all became visibly moved. Old man Wuji revealed a trace of complacency when he sensed the fearful gazes from the surroundings. The natal talisman was the work of his blood, sweat, and tears. It was extremely famous in Muqing County. He didn't believe that Lu Che, who had a natal talisman, couldn't kill Zhuowen. Qiu, do you still think Zhuowen will make it through the dark forest unscathed? Haha, but don't worry. Once we reach the training mountain, Ouyang Hanxian, and the others from Broken Rock City, will be eliminated very quickly. The Everlasting Elder glanced at Qiu provocatively. Their Tyrant Chu City and Broken Rock City were originally like fire and water, and the Everlasting Elder and Qiu had already fought many times. Seeing Qiu suffer, the Everlasting Elder was naturally pleased. Qiu's eyes darkened when he heard that. He had experienced the might of Old Man Wuji's natal talisman before. It was indeed very powerful. Although he was rather confident in Zhuowen, he still didn't believe that Zhuowen could withstand the might of the natal talisman with his strength. Old Man Wuji, don't be so smug. The dark forest is shrouded in inky black mist all year round. Visibility is extremely low. It's not that easy to track someone down. Qiu snorted coldly. Hee. I've already planned to get rid of that little bastard. Do you think I wouldn't think of that? To tell you the truth, I've placed a tracking presence in the jade slip of the Startling Cloud Limitless manual. As long as that little bastard doesn't throw the jade slip away, Lu Che and the others will definitely be able to catch up. Old Man Wuji said proudly. What? Qiu, Guyu Tian, and Ouyang Yunta finally revealed looks of shock. Originally, they had thought that Zhuowen could rely on the inky black fog to escape from Lu Che and the others due to the extremely low visibility in the dark forest. But now, the Everlasting Old Man had actually made full preparations. Limitless old devil, you're really ruthless. Qiu said coldly. He no longer paid any attention to the old man. Instead, he stared worriedly at Zhuowen's name on the monolith. Fortunately, Zhuowen's name was still bright and had not dimmed. This meant that Zhuowen had not been eliminated yet. Zhuowen, don't die so easily, Qiu muttered. Seeing that Qiu did not reply, the Wuji old man felt a little bored. He narrowed his eyes and stared at the Heaven and Earth tablet. He was looking forward to seeing Zhuowen being eliminated. Whoosh! Suddenly, a golden light flashed across the Heaven and Earth tablet. Then, like a falling meteor, the light gradually dimmed. Another person has been eliminated. The golden light quickly dimmed. Everyone's eyes flickered as they stared fixedly at the name that was about to dim. Every time this happened, they knew that someone had been eliminated. Very soon, they found an unremarkable name in the human category. The person who had been eliminated was only a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. Everyone only glanced at him briefly before ignoring him. After all, he was only a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. There was no need for them to pay too much attention to him. However, the Everlasting Old Man in the crowd frowned slightly. This was because the half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator, who had fallen, was from Tyrant Chu City. Moreover, he was one of the 5 people who had pursued Zhuowen with Lu Che. It looks like that Zhuowen has some strength. Lu Che and the other 4 surrounded him, but he still managed to kill one of them. The Everlasting Old Man was slightly displeased. Although Tyrant Chu City had a deep foundation, it still took a lot of effort to raise a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. Originally, he thought that Lu Che should be able to kill Zhuowen without suffering any injuries, since he possessed 3 destiny talismans and was besieged by 5 people. However, now that he had lost one of his people, it naturally made Old Man Wuji unhappy. I'm afraid that Lu Che was reluctant to use his natal talismans, which is why he allowed Zhuowen to kill one of his people. I'll have to give Lu Che a good scolding after he passes the trial, the Everlasting Old Man thought to himself. Whoosh! Another blazing golden light lit up, and yet another person's name in the human steel dimmed. However, it still didn't cause too much of a commotion. The human steel was filled with half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivators, so they weren't worth paying too much attention to. After all, half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivators were the lowest level of existence in the steel of heaven and earth. Crack! However, the Everlasting Old Man clenched his right hand as he stared at the name that had dimmed again. This person was also a genius from Tyrant Chu City. He was also the other half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator in Lu Che's group of 5. Lu Che, that brat. If he doesn't give me an explanation after the trial, I won't forgive him. The everlasting old man muttered to himself coldly as his expression darkened. The everlasting old man could still accept the loss of one half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivator. However, he had lost two at once. No matter how rich the everlasting old man was, he still felt some pain in his heart. After all, there were no more than 10 half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivators in Tyrant Chu City. However, it's about time that Zhuowen was dealt with by Lu Che. He died a worthy death for having 2 half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivators from Tyrant Chu City die with him. As he spoke, the everlasting old man stared coldly at Zhuowen's name in the sky category. The 2 half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivators were the weakest among Lu Che's group of 5, so it was possible that they'd be killed by Zhuowen before he died. However, the remaining Lu Che, Zhou Yi, and Zhou Fan were no pushovers. They were more than capable of killing Zhuowen. Qiu Chou and the others, who were standing not too far away from the everlasting old man, also noticed that the 2 half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivators who'd been eliminated seemed to be from Tyrant Chu City. It looks like Zhuowen and Tyrant Chu City's teams have started fighting. Qiu Chou frowned as he spoke worriedly. The everlasting old man is too despicable. He didn't have any good intentions when he took out the art of startling cloud. Ouying shook his head helplessly. Then what should we do? That Lu Che has a natal talisman on him. Even if Zhuo Wenyu has already killed 2 geniuses from the Tyrant Chu City, if Lu Che were to make a move, how could Zhuo Wenyu possibly be his match? Gu Yutian's face was filled with worry. Zhuowen was the most monstrous genius in the history of Rattan Armor City, and a key figure in the rise of Rattan Armor City. If Zhuowen died, then Rattan Armor City would have no hope of rising again. It might even decline forever. Lord Gu, don't worry too much. Zhuowen isn't dead yet, is he? Perhaps the heavens will help the worthy, and he'll be able to escape from Lu Che's pursuit. Qiu Chao's face revealed a trace of bitterness. Even he couldn't believe this. He's still lying to himself. Qiu Chou, that old bastard, still hasn't given up. Let's see what kind of expression he'll have when the results come out. The everlasting old man chuckled to himself. Whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, 2 rays of golden light flashed from the worldly monolith. They were like 2 blazing suns on the monolith, extremely dazzling and eye-catching. However, this resplendent scene was short-lived. Look! The golden light is coming from the Earth stage area. This means that the eliminated geniuses are at the Ultimate Emperor realm. Moreover, 2 of them were eliminated at the same time. It looks like the 2 of them were from the same team. They must have encountered some big trouble in the Dark Forest, so they died together. This is the first time in 3 days that I've seen Ultimate Emperor realm geniuses being eliminated. I originally thought that the geniuses in the Earth stage area would be able to make it to the Mountain of Trials. I didn't expect them to be eliminated in just 3 days. This speed is a bit fast. When the golden light rose from the Earth stage area, it immediately caused an uproar on the platform. Many people even shook their heads emotionally. Creak. The everlasting old man clenched his fists tightly. Terrifying veins bulged on the back of his hand. His cold little eyes widened as he stared blankly at the 2 names that were gradually dimming in the Earth stage area. He muttered in disbelief. Zhou Yi, Zhou Fan, they've been eliminated as well? How is this possible? Zhou Yi and Zhou Fan were geniuses second only to Lu Che in Tyrant Chu City. Although they were only at the first wheel of the Ultimate Emperor realm, the 2 of them had cultivated the Yin-Yang True Water technique. If the 2 of them worked together, their strength would be comparable to an early-stage second wheel of the Ultimate Emperor realm. In the eyes of the Wuji Elder, it was impossible for Zhou Yi and Zhou Fan to be eliminated. However, they had now appeared before him. Qiu Chou, Gu Yutian, and Ouying to also noticed the dimming names of Zhou Yi and Zhou Fan in the Earth stage area. They naturally recognized these 2 geniuses, who were quite famous in Tyrant Chu City. Strange expressions appeared on their faces. Zhuowen's strength seemed to have exceeded their expectations. Lu Che had clearly led 5 people to chase after Zhuowen, but now, 4 of them had been killed by Zhuowen. One of them was a peak Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. while the other was a mid-ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. However, the commotion on the platform hadn't ended yet. A terrifying, blazing golden light suddenly erupted from the disk of heaven and earth. The dazzling golden light practically enveloped the entire platform. Many people couldn't help but cover their eyes with their hands. After their eyes adjusted to the light, they slowly opened their eyes. Soon after, they were shocked to discover that this light was coming from the heaven stage area. What? Could it be that an ultimate Emperor realm cultivator at the second will has been eliminated? In an instant, an uproar rose and fell on the platform. The geniuses in the heaven stage area could be considered the seeded contestants of the trial mountain. Now, there were already seeded contestants who had fallen before they even entered the mountain. This was simply too exaggerated. Chapter 455. Two-colored flames. The dazzling golden light slowly faded away. Lu Che's name gradually dimmed at the 50-second mark of the heaven stage, and finally disappeared from the surface of the stone tablet. In an instant, the entire platform fell silent. Many people looked at each other in dismay. They had no idea what had happened. It had only been 3 days, but 2 of the seeded Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators had already fallen. Wasn't this a little too fast? Isn't Lu Che the #1 genius of Tyrant Chu City? Although he's only an initial 2-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, he has the life talisman given to him by the old man. Who would have thought that he would die in the dark forest in just 3 days? I heard that after Lu Che left the training grounds, he led the 4 strongest cultivators of Tyrant Chu City to chase after Zhuowen. Could it be that Lu Che and the others were all killed by Zhuowen? Are you kidding? Lu Che has a natal talisman, so he'll be able to survive even if he encounters an early-stage Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Zhuowen isn't much stronger than Lu Che. Do you think Zhuowen has the strength to kill Lu Che? Yes. I don't believe that Zhuowen has the strength to do so either. It's said that the dark forest is extremely dangerous. If you're not careful, even an ultimate 3-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator can die. This Lu Che might have been unlucky. Perhaps he provoked a origin beast in the dark forest and lost his life. An uproar immediately broke out around the platform. Many cultivators stared blankly at the dim name as they discussed amongst themselves. Many people even looked in the direction of the everlasting old man. Creak. The old man clenched his fists and his veins bulged. When he saw Lu Che's name dim with his own eyes, his facial muscles twitched violently. His expression became incomparably sinister. How is this possible? Lu Che is actually dead. The old man took a few steps back. He felt the ground beneath his feet shake, and he almost lost his balance. He stared blankly at the tablet as he muttered to himself. He couldn't believe this. He couldn't believe it. Tyrant Chu's losses in this battle for the Vitality Tower are huge. Lu Che, Zhou Yi, and Zhou Fan were all geniuses that Tyrant Chu had painstakingly nurtured. To think that they would all die in an instant. Many people shook their heads and sighed when they saw the everlasting old man's soulless appearance. Some of them even revealed mocking expressions. The everlasting old man was arrogant and despotic, and he had offended many people. Now that these people saw the everlasting old man in such a state, they naturally took pleasure in his misfortune. On the other hand, Qiu Chou, Guyu Tian, and Ouyang Yuntu were pleasantly surprised. They hadn't expected Lu Che to be eliminated instead of Zhuowen. Lu Che is dead. He couldn't have been killed by Zhuowen, right? Guyu Tian said excitedly, who knew that Qiu Chou shook his head and said, Lord Gu, you don't know. The everlasting old man's natal talisman is extremely powerful. It's enough to withstand the full force attack of a 3-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. After all, Zhuowen is only a 2-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. It's basically impossible for him to kill Lu Che, who has a natal talisman. However, this Lu Che's personality is the same as the everlasting old man's. He's also arrogant and unruly. After entering the dark forest, he probably relied on his natal talisman to act in a high-profile manner, thus attracting the attention of many powerful origin beasts in the dark forest. Qiu Chou didn't elaborate further. However, Guyu Tian and Ouyang Yuntu had already guessed what Qiu Chou meant. Lu Che should have died in the dark forest. This was the most logical guess. Compared to the uproar of the crowd on the platform, LV Nantion, the master of Meteorite Garden, and the other 4 people at the front of the platform appeared much calmer. However, the 5 of them still revealed a trace of astonishment on their faces. Generally speaking, as long as a 2-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator was careful, they would have a high chance of passing through the dark forest. However, it had only been 3 days, and one of these seated cultivators had actually fallen. This naturally surprised the 5 of them, but they didn't take it to heart. After all, Lu Che's ranking in the Heaven Rank region was extremely low. It wasn't enough for them to pay too much attention to him. The dark forest was shrouded in endless black fog. It was eerily silent in the vast expanse of land. Occasionally, the roars of beasts and the shadows that flitted through the forest added a mysterious veil to this forest that was filled with danger. Within a quiet cave, Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes. A gleam of light flashed through his eyes as he murmured, "I never thought that after 10 days of cultivation, my cultivation would actually make a slight breakthrough. I've already reached the peak of the early second wheel. All I need is an opportunity, and I'll be able to reach the mid-second wheel. It's usually the easiest to break through between life and death. Your battle with Lu Che was practically a narrow escape. This kind of dangerous battle can only be beneficial to you." Xiao He flew to Zhuowen's shoulder and said. Glancing at Zhuowen, Xiao He suddenly said, "Kid, I saw that you've been comprehending the fire fusion art for the past 10 days. I wonder how you've been doing?" A trace of a smile appeared on Zhuowen's face when he heard this. The fire fusion art is truly miraculous. Although I haven't fully comprehended it, I believe that fusing 2 types of earth fire shouldn't be a problem. 2 types of earth fire? To be able to fuse 2 types of earth fire in 10 days, that's not bad. Why don't you show it to this Lord Dragon?" Xiao He asked expectantly. Zhuowen didn't waste any time. With a light pinch of his left hand, a portion of the earth fire stored in the sacred fire rune surged out. They were the blue 9 heavens thunder inferno flame, and the green 3000 green lotus flame. As soon as the 2 types of earth fire appeared, the temperature in the cave instantly shot up. Under such high temperature, the nearby rock walls actually showed signs of melting. Zhuowen's eyes turned serious. The Naiwen palace between his eyebrows began to spin rapidly. Waves of mental energy gushed out, and turned into a gentle force that enveloped the 9 heavens thunder inferno flame, and the 3000 green lotus flame. Zhuowen then began to circulate the fire fusion art, and slowly fused the 2 types of earth fire together. Sizzle! Ear-piercing sounds slowly rang out, like the soft sound of firecrackers exploding. When the 2 types of earth fire came into contact with each other, green and blue sparks burst out, looking brilliant and gorgeous. At this moment, a trace of cold sweat appeared on Zhuowen's forehead. Although he had been comprehending the fire fusion art for the past 10 days, this was the first time he had actually fused the flames. Crackle! When the 2 types of earth fire were more than half fused, they suddenly began to tremble violently. Waves of terrifying energy constantly escaped from the 2 types of earth fire. Danger! With this thought in mind, Zhuowen's hands moved extremely quickly. He quickly threw the 2 types of earth fire that had failed to fuse out of the cave. Boom! The 2 types of earth fire that had failed to fuse flew out dozens of feet, before suddenly exploding violently. Countless waves of qi scattered in all directions. It actually blasted open a huge crater that was dozens of feet wide in the open space outside the cave. Looking at the crater outside the cave, Zhuowen's face palpitated. It seemed that fusing earth fire wasn't as simple as the ice fire rune. Hee, kid, aren't you being too confident? Fusing 2 types of earth fire won't be a problem? Is this a sign that there's no problem? Xiao He pointed at the crater outside the cave and laughed without restraint. This caused Zhuowen's expression to become extremely ugly. He snorted coldly. Fusing the earth fire is only a matter of time. This is only my first attempt, so it's understandable that I failed. However, the power of this failed 2-colored flame is still quite impressive. Its power is indeed not bad. If this Dragon Lord's guess is correct, the power of this failed 2-colored flame is comparable to that of a mid-two-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm practitioner. If you succeed, the power of this two-colored flame will be comparable to that of a late two-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm practitioner. Zhuowen nodded in agreement with Xiao Hei's words. The power of the two-colored flame had indeed surprised Zhuowen. If a two-colored flame could reach such a level, then wouldn't a three-colored flame be comparable to a peak two-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm practitioner? And a four-colored flame would be even more powerful. It would probably be able to threaten a three-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm practitioner. I hope I can master the two-colored flame as soon as possible and create enough of it. At that time, the Ice Flame Saint Talisman's power will reach an even higher level. With that, Zhuowen took a step forward and exited the cave. He arrived at the empty space outside and began to try fusing the two-colored flame again and again. Boom, boom, boom. For a moment, the secluded space was filled with continuous explosions. Fortunately, Zhuowen had set up a silencing restriction around the cave beforehand. So no matter how loud he was inside, no one outside could hear him. Time flowed by, and 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. A black-haired, black-eyed young man stood in the empty space with a serious expression on his face. He clenched his hands in the air, and 2 types of powerful earth fire immediately appeared in his palms. The left was a green flame, and the right was a blue flame, following which, a wave of mental energy that was as vast as the sea gushed out and gently wrapped around the 2 earth flames. Soon after, the young man slowly placed his hands together. When the 2 earth flames came into contact with each other, dazzling sparks flew in all directions. At the same time, muffled explosions began to resound. It sounded as if the 2 earth flames in his hands would explode at any moment. I'll definitely succeed this time. The young man snorted coldly. His hands formed a seal with great familiarity, and he did not hesitate to squeeze the 2 types of earth fire together. Following that, an unbelievable scene occurred. The 2 types of earth fire with terrifying temperatures instantly fused together, forming a strange flame that alternated between blue and green. An aura that was much more powerful than regular earth fire surged out from the 2-colored flame. The surrounding space seemed to distort. The 2-colored flame has successfully fused. Zhuowen's face immediately lit up with wild joy when he saw the blue and green flames slowly burning in his palms. He could not help but laugh at the sky. Swoosh. Chapter 456. Someone was there. The night was like the king of darkness, ruling over the world and enveloping the entire sky in darkness. Beast roars rang out one after another, appearing terrifying and eerie. In the depths of the dark forest, on a small hill in the forest, a bonfire was surging. A somewhat lonely figure was sitting cross-legged in front of the bonfire. His expression was leisurely, and he did not appear to be flustered or nervous because of the sudden rise and fall of the beast roars in the night. This figure was tall and slender, shoulder-length black hair casually scattered behind his back. He carried a blood-colored spear on his back. It was Zhuowen, who had left the cave and was heading towards the training mountain. Ever since he had mastered the first level of the fire fusion art and successfully merged the 2 flames, Zhuowen had rushed towards the training mountain without stopping. With Xiao Hei's divine sense, Zhuowen's speed was rather fast, and he was very close to the training mountain. It has already been a month since we entered the dark forest. This dark forest is indeed filled with danger. If one is not careful, even a second-wheel Ultimate Emperor practitioner may die inside. Zhuowen said to Xiao Hei in his mind in a bored manner, as he tossed the dry wood in his hand into the bonfire. Kid, you have this Dragon Lord's divine sense to help you detect danger, yet you're still worried about this. If it wasn't for this Dragon Lord, you wouldn't have rushed here so quickly. This place is only 1,000 miles away from the training mountain. If there aren't too many obstacles ahead, you'll only need 5 days to enter the training mountain. Xiao Hei said. Nodding his head, Zhuowen did not say anything else. Instead, he stared at the bonfire in front of him, his right hand tossing the dry wood in boredom. Crack! Suddenly, Zhuowen's right hand tightened, instantly crushing the dry wood in his hand. His sharp eyes narrowed as he muttered. Xiao Hei, Are you sure that someone is heading towards us? Yes. Be careful. There are indeed 2 people heading towards us. They must have seen the bonfire here, Xiaohei said solemnly. Slowly raising his head, Zhuowen also sensed something. His gaze was fixed on the deep forest in front of him, where he could hear some somewhat hurried footsteps. The bonfire surged. A moment later, 2 graceful figures finally walked out from the darkness. One of the 2 silhouettes was dressed in a cyan veil. Her fair skin was accentuated by the veil, making her look even more alluring and beautiful. Under the light of the bonfire, her pretty face had a hint of delicateness. Behind the cyan-clothed woman was a red-clothed girl. The red-clothed girl's age was about the same as Zhuowen's, but she still looked a little immature. When Zhuowen's gaze converged on the 2 beautiful figures, his face was startled. The ferocious expression on his face faded away like the tide, and was replaced by a surprised smile. Zhuowen, the green-clothed lady could not help but exclaim when she saw the slender figure slowly standing up from the bonfire in front of her. Miss Qinglian, what a coincidence that we would actually meet in the dark forest. With a faint smile, Zhuowen arrived in front of Qinglian and said, Why are you in such a sorry state? Could it be that you have met with some trouble? When he approached Qinglian, Zhuowen frowned slightly. Only now did he notice that Qinglian's pretty face carried a wisp of exhaustion. Moreover, the gauze on her body was damaged in many places, causing her skin that was white like snow to be exposed. Qinglian also noticed Zhuowen's gaze. Her beautiful eyes tilted slightly, and her expression became a little unnatural. She forced a smile and said, There is no trouble. Seeing your sister Qinglian. Behind her, Honglian saw that Qinglian did not want to speak. She stamped her foot anxiously, and subconsciously wanted to speak. However, she did not dare to continue after being stared at by Qinglian. Zhuowen also noticed the strangeness of the 2 women in front of him. He frowned slightly. Judging from Qinglian's sorry state, they should have met with some big trouble. However, why didn't they say anything? This made Zhuowen feel a little strange. Zhuowen, this is my junior sister Honglian. She is considered an extremely talented genius in our Jade Lady Star Court. We have urgent matters to attend to now, so we won't disturb you. We will take our leave first. Qinglian gritted her teeth and forced a smile at Zhuowen. She directly pulled Honglian and was about to pass by Zhuowen. Just as Qinglian was about to pass by Zhuowen, Zhuowen suddenly stretched out his right hand and grabbed Qinglian's jade-like hand. He frowned slightly and asked, Miss Qinglian, are you really okay? Looking at you now, you don't look like you are okay. If it was someone else, Zhuowen naturally would not meddle in their business. However, Qinglian had no choice. Since the incident in the ancient cave mansion, Qinglian had helped Zhuowen several times. Zhuowen had always remembered Qinglian's favor in his heart. He was not an ungrateful person. Feeling Zhuowen's warm hand, Qinglian's delicate body trembled slightly. A trace of mist suddenly appeared in her watery eyes. However, it was quickly replaced by a trace of determination. She turned around and stared at Zhuowen. Qinglian said coldly, Zhuowen, I really have urgent matters to attend to. I hope you will stop obstructing me and let us go. Hearing this, Zhuowen was startled. He revealed a wry smile and said, I'm sorry, Miss Qinglian. I was too rude just now. If there is nothing else, we will leave first. After all, the Mountain of Trials is about to open. We can't stay in the dark forest for too long. Qinglian nodded slightly, and did not dare to look at Zhuowen again. She gently pulled her jade-like hand out of Zhuowen's grasp, and directly left the bonfire with Honglian, who wanted to say something but was hesitating. Staring at Qinglian and Honglian leaving in a hurry, Zhuowen frowned. He always felt that Qinglian was hiding something from him, and did not want to say it. However, since Qinglian said that she was fine, Zhuowen would not look for trouble. Kid, that girl called Qinglian is severely injured. I don't know why, but she's purposefully hiding her injuries from you. Suddenly Xiaohei's voice rang out in his head. Severely injured? Hearing this, Zhuowen's pupil shrunk slightly. Just as he was about to ask for the details, Zhuowen frowned slightly. This was because 4 ear-piercing sounds of breaking through the air sounded from the direction that Qinglian and Xiao Yin had come from. Clearly, there were 4 people hurrying over. Kid, be careful. The 4 of them are very powerful. They seem to all be second-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivators. Xiao Hei's voice immediately became serious. All 4 of them are second-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivators? Are they geniuses from the super forces of the provincial capital? Zhuowen could not help but be surprised as well. He knew that those who had appeared together were basically all geniuses from the same organization. Only the 5 great organizations in the provincial capital would be so bold as to have more than 4 second-wheel ultimate emperor realm geniuses in Muqin province. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Instantly, 4 figures with surging auras appeared a few dozen meters away from the bonfire. 4 gazes converged on Zhuowen, who stood in front of the bonfire. The 4 figures were all young men around the same age. All of their auras surged violently. What surprised Zhuowen was that it was just as Xiao Hei had said. The 4 of them were actually second-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivators. In particular, the leader of the group was a man in green robes with a sinister gaze. His aura was the strongest. According to Xiao Hei's probing, the man with a gloomy expression was actually a late-stage second-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator. As for the remaining 3 young men, one of them was a mid-stage second-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator, while the other 2 were early-stage second-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivators. It's not him. Let's continue chasing. The green-clothed man glanced indifferently at Zhuowen. Then, he suddenly stomped his foot on the ground and shot forward like an arrow that had left the bow. The other 3 nodded when they heard the man's words. They ignored Zhuowen, who stood in front of the bonfire, and followed behind the man in green robes. The 4 of them are all from the Marquis of Baichuan's estate. Why are they in such a hurry as well? Zhuowen muttered with a frown as he casually stirred the bonfire with his hand. The 4 of them had all been tested on the steel of heaven and earth before. They were all renowned figures in the heaven realm region, so Zhuowen naturally had a deep impression of them. The leader of the group was said to be a genius second only to Su Tianliang in the Marquis of Baichuan's estate. At the same time, he was Su Tianliang's younger brother Su Liang. He was a late-stage second-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator, and was an extremely difficult opponent to deal with. Kid, the direction the 4 of them are heading in seems to be where Qing Lian and Xiao Hei left. It's probably not a coincidence that they've come here. Perhaps they're pursuing those 2 women. Xiao Hei's voice rang out leisurely. Crack. Zhuowen suddenly crushed the withered branch in his hand. Zhuowen's gaze became gloomy as he said, Xiao Hei, are you sure that the 4 of them are pursuing Qing Lian and Xiao Hei? Of course I'm sure. This dragon lord felt that the aura of Qing Lian's injury was extremely similar to the aura of Su Liang. I'm afraid that Qing Lian was injured by Su Liang, Xiao Hei said. The Jade Lady Astral Court and the Marquis of Baichuan's estate are both among the 5 great powers of the prefecture. Why is Su Liang pursuing Qing Lian? If the Jade Lady Astral Court finds out about this, I'm afraid they won't let it go, right? Zhuowen said with a frown. I don't know about that. However, looking at Su Liang's anxious look, I'm afraid that Qing Lian and Xiao Hei are extremely important to him. Kid, do you want to be a hero and save the damsel in distress? Xiao Hei's voice suddenly became vulgar as he spoke. Since it's Miss Qing Lian's matter, then I, Zhuowen, naturally have to take care of it. I'd like to see the strength of the second genius of the Marquis of Baichuan's estate. With a cruel smile on his face, Zhuowen lightly stepped on the ground, causing the fallen leaves to scatter in all directions. Then like a ghost he disappeared from where he stood. A few hundred kilometers away from the bonfire was a dense forest. Countless withered branches flickered about in the surroundings like ghosts, and it seemed strange and terrifying. Especially the whistling sounds emitted by the violent winds that blew over and tore the branches apart. It added an atmosphere of terror to this silent night. 2 beautiful figures were walking unsteadily in the dense forest. Suddenly, Qing Lian, who was walking in front, bent her waist and knelt on one knee. She suddenly spat out a mouthful of cherry-red blood. Senior sister Qing Lian, are you all right? Hong Lian hurried to Qing Lian's side and helped her up. She was so anxious that she almost cried. I didn't expect Su Liang to practice the forbidden technique, Dark Yin Finger. The power of this darking finger is really extraordinary. My meridians are almost filled with the power of the darking finger. I can't mobilize the power to heal my internal injuries, Qing Lian said with a painful expression as she placed her hand on her chest. Chapter 457. Underworld Finger. You silly girl, can't you see? Even if I hand you over, Su Liang, and the others won't let me live. After all, if the Jade Lady Star Court finds out that Su Liang is trying to deal with us, then a war between the 100 Rivers Marquis Mansion and the Jade Lady Star Court is bound to happen. However, Su Liang will not let this happen. Qing Lian's eyes were cold as she said, "The dark forest is full of danger. Even a three-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator can die in the forest if they are careless. Therefore, as long as Su Liang kills us without anyone noticing, Jade Lady Star Court will not suspect them." Hearing this, Red Lotus's face turned pale. She sobbed. "Then what should we do? Su Liang and the others are too strong. We're no match for them. With their speed, they'll catch up with us soon." Red Lotus was completely out of her wits. It was the first time in 18 years that she felt so close to death. At the same time, she began to regret her slacking off. If she had been more diligent, she could have reached the two-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm. Then she wouldn't have been a burden to Qing Lian. "Red Lotus, you go first. Su Liang and the others are after you. I won't let you fall into their hands. As long as you reach the Mountain of Trials, you'll be able to meet Senior Sister Luo Xing there. At that time, you can tell Senior Sister Luo Xing about this matter and ask her to avenge me." Qing Lian pushed Hong Lian lightly, barely supporting herself as she spoke. "No, Senior Sister, I won't leave you behind. If we're leaving, we'll leave together. Why don't we go back and find Zhuowen? Maybe he can help us," Red Lotus said anxiously with tears on her face. "Don't." Qing Lian hurriedly pulled Red Lotus back. Her face was pale as she said, "Don't find Zhuowen. Don't drag him into this. Even if Zhuowen comes, it won't help. He's only an initial two-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. He can't help us at all." "But," Red Lotus pursed her lips as tears welled up in her eyes. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. 4 figures with powerful auras rushed towards Qing Lian from hundreds of meters away. "Miss Clear Lotus, Miss Red Lotus, why are you two running? This Su won't eat you, so why are you running?" A gloomy voice came from the forest behind them. It was Su Liang's voice. Qing Lian and Hong Lian's delicate bodies trembled. Their beautiful eyes stared intently at the 4 figures behind them. Their pretty faces revealed a trace of despair. Bang! Suddenly, Qing Lian stretched out her hand and pressed it against Hong Lian's back. A gentle force immediately carried Hong Lian's delicate body forward. "Red Lotus, remember, you must reach the Mountain of Trials and tell Senior Sister Luo Xing everything that happened here. Only then will I be able to rest in peace." Qing Lian's cold voice rang out. Red Lotus could only watch as Qing Lian's proud and aloof figure slowly disappeared before her eyes. Qing Lian's pretty face was filled with determination as she watched the Red Lotus swiftly vanish before her eyes. She patted her cosmos sack and instantly took out a jade token with stars carved on its surface. After a moment of hesitation, Qing Lian directly crushed the jade pendant. Immediately, countless starlights spread out. With Qing Lian as the center, the area of several hundred feet was completely enveloped by the dazzling starlight. "The starlight token? Miss Qing Lian, I didn't expect you to have this on you. It seems that Luo Xing gave it to you?" Su Liang and the other 3 were caught off guard and were directly enveloped by the dazzling starlight. Su Liang's face was gloomy as he stared at Qing Lian and said coldly, "The starlight token was a secret treasure, unique to the Jade Lady Astral Court. It was said that its power could spread over several hundred feet and form a cage of starlight energy. It could even trap a third-wheel ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator for a while. Su Liang, you're too bold. Aren't you afraid that the Jade Lady Astral Court will declare war on the Marquis of Baichuan's mansion by attacking us in public?" Qing Lian's pretty face was gloomy as she waved her hands. "Hee hee, then you can only blame your bad luck for bringing along a junior sister with an extremine body. If Hong Lian didn't have an extremine body, I naturally wouldn't have provoked you. Unfortunately, Hong Lian just happened to be. Su Liang shook his head and laughed sinisterly. Qing Lian, you also know what an extremine body means, right? Hee. As long as I absorb the primordial yin of an extremine place, not only will my dark yin finger reach the perfection realm, but my cultivation will also advance by leaps and bounds, because I cultivate the primordial yin body. It's even possible for me to directly break through to the third wheel ultimate emperor realm. Qing Lian's pretty face was ugly. She trembled with anger and said, Su Liang, you shameless person. Junior sister Hong Lian will never give you her primordial yin. You won't? Then I'll take it by force. Anyway, you junior sisters are going to die this time. Hee. Attack the surrounding starlight with all your might. Qing Lian is seriously injured and can't display the full power of the starlight token. As he spoke, Su Liang stomped his foot, and a powerful aura suddenly surged out. He began to attack the surrounding starlight with all his might. The other three received Su Liang's order, and naturally used all their strength to attack the starlight that approached them. Boom! Boom! Ear-piercing explosions rang out one after another, as countless strength qis flew in all directions within the starlight. Under the effect of these powerful strength qis, the surrounding starlight was destroyed one after another. The originally dense starlight became much thinner in the blink of an eye. Dark shadow finger break. Su Liang's face revealed an impatient expression. He stomped his foot forward and stretched out his right index finger. At this moment, the surging power of heaven and earth suddenly gathered in the void behind him. Immediately, a huge black finger that was dozens of feet long drilled out of the void and violently blasted the surrounding starlight. The surging aura overflowed from the huge finger like a surging torrent, forming a black hurricane that wiped out the remaining starlight. As soon as the starlight was broken, the black finger was like an ancient giant beast and heavily blasted the barrier outside the starlight. Boom! The entire barrier shook violently. The earth quaked and the mountains shook. The sky fell and the earth cracked. With a cracking sound, the barrier that was on the verge of collapse finally cracked under the bombardment of the huge finger. The crack gradually spread and collapsed inch by inch. Puff! A mouthful of blood was spat out from her cherry lips, and Qing Lian was like a butterfly with broken wings, as she quickly flew backwards. Her beautiful face became bloodless and extremely pale. She finally crashed into the withered tree behind her and let out a muffled groan. Humph! You're like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. I'll leave Qing Lian to you, but don't leave her alive. I'll go after Red Lotus first. Su Liang took a step forward. His face revealed a trace of indifference, and he directly disappeared on the spot. The remaining three people understood tacitly. Their eyes converged on Qing Lian, who was lying limp on the ground in front of them. Their faces revealed obscene expressions as they slowly walked toward Qing Lian. Qing Lian was an extremely famous genius among the younger generation of the Jade Lady Star Court. Moreover, her figure and appearance were also considered one of the best in the county. Many young talents in the county had pursued Qing Lian, but they were all rejected by her. I really did not expect that Qing Lian, who is known for being as pure as ice and as pure as jade, would actually have such a weak side. Looks like the three of us need to properly dote on her. The gray-clothed youth, who was the strongest, laughed heartily. Shameless, Qing Lian clenched her teeth. She could vaguely guess what the three people were going to do. Her beautiful eyes revealed a trace of despair. Just as the gray-clothed youth's big hand was about to grab Qing Lian, an ear-piercing sound suddenly rang out. Immediately, a bloody light rushed toward them from the side. The gray-clothed youth was alerted. He suddenly pushed out his palms, and a surge of the power of heaven and earth condensed into a golden light shield in front of him. Boom! The bloody light flashed and directly blasted on the golden light shield. The golden light exploded, and an ear-piercing sound of metal clashing resounded. At this time, the gray-clothed youth finally noticed that the bloody light was actually a bloody spear. A trace of ferocity flashed in his eyes, and he said coldly, "Who is it?" How dare you interfere with the affairs of the Marquis Mansion of Baichuan? Do you want to die? The one who wants to die is not me but you. A clear voice suddenly rang out. Immediately, a figure with a pair of thunder wings on his back came in front of the gray-clothed youth. He stretched out his right hand and instantly pulled out the bloody spear that was deadlocked on the golden light shield. His right hand suddenly swept out, and the huge bloody spear violently bombarded the golden light shield again. Crack! Countless sparks burst out on the golden light shield, and traces of cracks continuously spread on the surface of the golden light shield. In the end, it collapsed inch by inch. The gray-clothed youth's pupils shrunk to the size of a needle, and a trace of shock appeared on his face. Bang! The bloody spear was like a hot knife through butter, and like a huge door, it blasted directly on the chest of the gray-clothed youth. Puff! The gray-clothed youth spat out blood and flew backward. After being dragged on the ground for dozens of meters, he violently collided with a withered tree. A tall figure like a cypress tree, holding a bloody spear, leisurely stopped in front of Qing Lian. Then, the figure slowly turned around, revealing a young and delicate face. Zhuowen? The clothes of the young man in front of her fluttered without wind. His figure was as tall as a pine tree, and his smile was as warm as the rising sun. His straight back seemed to be able to carry the sky even if it collapsed. When she finally saw the gentle smile on the young man's face, Qing Lian, who had a cold expression, finally had her beautiful eyes turn red, and a line of tears slowly flowed down her cheeks. He came. He really came in the end. And he even saved her. In the most difficult and desperate situation, Qing Lian did not cry, did not give in, and did not beg for mercy. However, when she saw the warm smile on Zhuowen's face, she could no longer control her tears. Clear tears slowly flowed down like meteors that pierced through the night sky. In front of Zhuowen, Qing Lian no longer forced herself to hold on. She only wanted to pour out all the grievances and depression in her heart, at this moment, in front of the man in front of her. It's okay. I will help you get rid of all the obstacles. Chapter 458. Blood splatter. Qing Lian felt an indescribable sense of security, for the first time, as she felt the warmth from his hand. It was as if she would feel at ease as long as the young man was in front of her. Thank you, Qing Lian said softly as she lowered her head. Damn it! Who the hell are you? Don't you know we're from the Marquis of Baichuan's estate? The gray-clothed young man stood up in a sorry state, as he stared at the young man before him with extreme fear. The young man couldn't help but be surprised by how easily the young man had broken through the golden barrier he'd released earlier. After all, he was an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator at the second wheel. Even Su Liang shouldn't have been able to send him flying so cleanly. Zhuowen slowly turned around and stared at the three people with serious expressions. He said indifferently, "The dead have no right to know my name." The gray-clothed young man's face darkened when he heard this. He sneered, "What an arrogant kid. Do you think you're so great just because you were lucky enough to force me back? I'd like to see if you really have any moves up your sleeves. Let's attack together and get rid of this arrogant kid," the gray-clothed young man ordered to his companion beside him. The gray-clothed youth instructed his companion beside him. Then, a ferocious smile appeared on his face. He took a step forward and directly rushed toward Zhuowen. Three powerful auras suddenly burst out, and the surrounding air even started to boil. Zhuowen, be careful. The three of them are all ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators. Su Qian is even an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator at the second wheel. You probably won't be a match for them if they work together. It's best if you don't care about me and flee on your own. At this moment, there was a trace of worry on Qing Lian's face. Earlier, Zhuowen had forcefully forced Su Qian back, and it was indeed rather shocking. However, Qing Lian also knew that it was because Zhuowen had successfully launched a sneak attack while Su Qian was unprepared. Zhuowen's aura was only at the peak of the second wheel of the ultimate Emperor Realm. He might be able to win against the other two, but against Su Qian, he would be completely suppressed. Now that Su Qian and the other two had joined forces, Zhuowen basically had no chance of winning. Zhuowen shook his head and said indifferently, "Miss Qing Lian, there's no need to worry. I only need 5 breaths of time to deal with these 3 small fries. As he spoke, Zhuowen didn't notice the astonishment on Qing Lian's beautiful face. He stomped his foot and fearlessly moved to meet them head-on. And the blood-colored great spear in his right hand swiftly stabbed out, transforming into spear shadows that covered the sky as they enveloped Su Qian's group of 3. Arrogant fellow, this time I'll make you suffer a fate worse than death. Su Qian and the other 2 had also heard Zhuowen's arrogant words. Especially when they heard Zhuowen say that the 3 of them were trash. The rage on their faces was extremely intense. Their expressions were as if they wished for nothing more than to skin Zhuowen alive. Low Emperor Tier Armor Skill, Raging Wave Fist. Low Emperor Tier Armor Skill, Divine Sun Claw. Low Emperor Tier Armor Skill, Thousand Rain Kill. In just an instant, the 3 of them had actually executed the Emperor Tier Armor skills that they were most proud of. For a time, the energy in an area of over 1 kilometer started to seethe, and the withered branches in the surroundings even collapsed successively under this formidable aura. When Qing Lian, who was leaning on a tree trunk at the back, saw Su Qian's group of 3 execute Emperor Tier Armor skills, as soon as they arrived, her beautiful face instantly turned ghastly pale. Obviously, Su Qian's group of 3 intended to deal with Zhuowen as soon as possible. The resources and reserves of the Marquis of Baichuan's estate are really abundant. The 3 of them possess 3 different Emperor Tier Armor skills as soon as they make a move. At this moment, Zhuowen seemed to be extremely calm. Even though he was slightly surprised when he saw Su Qian's group of 3 execute Emperor Tier Armor skills, he didn't take it seriously. Even though the might of Emperor Tier Armor skills was formidable, Zhuowen had numerous trump cards. Moreover, merely the strength of his body was comparable to a low-grade earth-rank spirit treasure, so he was utterly unafraid of their attacks. Limitless Startling Cloud Technique. Zhuowen didn't retreat but advanced instead. With a shake of his right hand, clouds and mist instantly suffused an area of over 100 m with him as the center, and Zhuowen was like a ghost within the clouds and mist. The attacks of the 3 instantly blasted into the clouds and mist, and the formidable force almost caused the space to distort. More than half of the clouds and mist in an area of over 100 m were annihilated by this force. What a strange armor skill. Is this kid actually hiding within the clouds and mist like a coward? Su Qian's brows knit together tightly when the 3 attacks hit nothing, and he snorted coldly. Waves of aura surged out from his body, and directly formed a violent hurricane in the surroundings. Whoosh! The violent hurricane was like a sickle that harvested rice. In the blink of an eye, the clouds and mist that lingered in the surroundings were annihilated and vanished under the effect of the hurricane. Kid, let's see where you can hide. Soon, Su Qian noticed a robust figure nearby, and he sneered as he boldly flashed towards that figure. Rumble! Eat my fist! Arriving in front of the figure in an instant, Su Qian's right fist suddenly blasted out. A wave of golden light erupted from his fist, and it was extremely dazzling as it directly blasted the figure's chest. Bang! A dull sound rang out, and the figure directly flew out, as if he had suffered a heavy blow. He smashed over 10 m away and formed a huge pit. You really can't withstand a single blow. Looks like you were just bluffing before. Su Qian grinned and said disdainfully, Bluffing? Do you really think you're hitting a human? Suddenly, a mocking voice sounded from behind Su Qian, causing his pupils to shrink as his gaze directly landed on the robust figure in front of him. This is a puppet? The figure that was blasted away by him wasn't Zhuowen at all, but the image of a middle-aged uncle with a lifeless expression. Clearly, it was just a puppet without any vitality. Turning his head abruptly, Su Qian discovered that Zhuowen's slender figure had unknowingly approached his other 2 companions. Haha, it's too late to discover it now. I'll gladly take your companions' lives. With a long laugh, Zhuowen suddenly shook the blood-red spear in his right hand, as he once again used the limitless startling cloud technique. Immediately after, under the amplification of the limitless startling cloud technique, he executed the moves of the Demon Moon secret manual one move after another, and its might almost reached the point of collapsing the heavens and splitting the earth. In the first move, Zhuowen directly repelled the two cultivators. In the second move, the two cultivators spat out blood with terrified expressions. And in the third move, the two cultivators were instantly heavily injured. Stop! Seeing that Zhuowen had heavily injured his two companions in 3 moves, Su Qian's face was filled with shock as he hurriedly shouted out, "Puchi!" Just as Su Qian shouted out, Zhuowen's blood-colored great spear had already turned into a strange mark in the air. With a flash of blood-colored light, 2 large heads directly flew off, the color of blood shooting into the sky like a fountain. "Bastard, I'm going to kill you!" Seeing the 2 heads fly up, Su Qian's eyes instantly became extremely red. With a stomp of his feet, his entire body was like a humanoid machine, as he charged towards Zhuowen with large strides. He must kill this bastard in front of him. Those 2 were his best companions, and they were actually killed just like that. Su Qian's heart was filled with grief and indignation. "Come on!" With a stomp of his feet, Zhuowen transformed into a shadow as he charged directly towards Su Qian, who had already fallen into madness, and the blood-red spear in his hand was ready to be shot out. Divine Sun Claw. Su Qian's right hand formed a claw as he grabbed at the air. Countless strands of origin energy around his body boiled and expanded as a red sun gradually rose behind him. Within the red sun was a huge golden claw. Li! A clear bird's cry resounded from the red sun, and then the huge red sun smashed directly towards Zhuowen like a mountain. Humph! With a cold snort, Zhuowen was not afraid at all. The blood-red spear in his right hand gradually expanded under the amplification of the cloud's startling limitless art, and turned into a huge blood-red spear that was dozens of feet long. It tore through the air and blasted directly onto the red sun. Boom! A terrifying explosion sounded continuously from the ground, and countless waves of air spread out in a ring shape. The space distorted and the ground cracked. Die, die, die! Su Qian was like a madman, as he desperately activated the power of heaven and earth in his body. The red sun in front of him expanded again, and its aura skyrocketed, instantly suppressing the blood-red spear. Whoosh! The blood-red spear wailed, and was directly thrown away. It was scattered on the ground, and its luster dimmed. Kid! There will never be a good ending for killing the people of the House of Marquis of Baichuan. Now, you will be buried with my companions. Su Qian roared, and the huge red sun with the monstrous power of a mountain blasted towards the frail figure below. Slightly raising his head, Zhuowen's eyes flashed with a trace of scarlet as he muttered, "Great Sun Divine Claw? I'll show you how I'll break it." As he took a step forward, countless bloody flames surged out from his body. The surface of his skin was covered with ferocious bloody lines, and the surrounding air instantly rose in temperature. He threw a punch into the air, and countless blood flames condensed into a huge blood hand. With a loud explosion, the blood hand directly grabbed the red sun. Under Su Qian's horrified gaze, the monstrous red sun was like a toy ball in the blood hand, and it was swung around. Finally, the blood hand squeezed the air, and a powerful force burst out. Crack! Ripples appeared on the surface of the red sun, and then it turned into countless red fragments that were annihilated in the air. How is this possible? The Great Sun Divine Claw is broken? Su Qian snorted and took a dozen steps back. Looking at the red sun that was easily broken, his eyes were filled with disbelief. Su Qian, I'll help you meet your 2 companions. A whistling sound rang out, and Su Qian was horrified to find that Zhuowen had appeared above him. Wrapped in endless blood flames, Zhuowen looked like a stranger who had walked out of hell. With a light press of his right hand, countless blood flames burst forth. The blood flames formed a huge blood hand that directly blasted towards Su Qian. Damn it! Block it for me! Su Qian roared and blocked with both hands, releasing a blazing golden barrier. Crack! The golden barrier was like paper in front of the blood hand, and it collapsed inch by inch. Su Qian spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. Su Qian, it's over. Chapter 459. Clean and tidy. Puchi! A column of blood spurted out. Su Qian's eyes were wide open as his head was separated from his body. He was dead. The moment he killed Su Qian, Zhuowen waved his right hand and took the Qingquan bag from Su Qian's waist. He was so thick-skinned that he didn't blush at all. So strong. Zhuowen is so strong. Isn't he just a two-wheel ultimate king realm warrior? Seeing Su Qian and the other two get killed so quickly, Qing Lian's cherry lips were slightly agape, and her eyes were dull. Originally, she thought that Zhuowen would at least be caught in a tough battle, and might even be defeated by Su Qian and the other two. But she never thought that Zhuowen's strength would be so strong that Su Qian and the other two were instantly defeated by Zhuowen. Miss Qing Lian, are you alright? After dealing with Su Qian and the other two, Zhuowen stepped forward and came to Qing Lian's side. He took out some healing elixirs from his Qingquan bag and gave them to her. Pushing the elixirs that Zhuowen handed to her, Qing Lian shook her head and said, I have special elixirs in my Qingquan bag. They are much more effective than ordinary elixirs, so there's no need to waste these elixirs. Seeing that Qing Lian refused, Zhuowen didn't insist. He nodded and put the elixirs back into his Qingquan bag. Although these elixirs weren't very useful to him, they could still be of some use at a critical moment. And even if he didn't have them, he could take them back to Zhuo family and let Zhuo Xiangding distribute them to the family disciples. Qing Lian stole a glance at Zhuowen and hesitated slightly. She gritted her teeth and said, Zhuowen, my junior sister Red Lotus is being hunted by Su Liang. Can you help me save her? In the beginning, Qing Lian didn't know Zhuowen's strength. She only thought that he was an ordinary two-wheel ultimate king realm warrior, so she didn't want to add to Zhuowen's trouble. However, Qing Lian knew that she'd underestimated Zhuowen's strength after witnessing how easily Zhuowen had dealt with Su Qian and the others. After all, Su Qian was a mid-second wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator, while the other two were early second wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivators. The three of them couldn't take more than a few moves from Zhuowen Yangchen. Clearly, Zhuowen was comparable to a late stage, or even peak ultimate king realm warrior. If Zhuowen was Zhuowen, he might be able to save Red Lotus from Su Liang. Your junior sister Red Lotus? Only now did Zhuowen discover that the girl in red who had been by Qing Lian's side was no longer here. However, Zhuowen wasn't a busybody. Zhuowen didn't know Hong Lian, so Zhuowen subconsciously didn't want to get involved. After all, although Su Liang was only a late-stage ultimate king realm warrior, as the second genius of the Marquis of Baichuan's estate, he probably had many trump cards up his sleeves. If they really fought, he would definitely be no weaker than a peak ultimate king realm warrior. Zhuowen was extremely repulsed by the fact that he didn't know such a troublesome opponent. Seeing Zhuowen's appearance, how could Qing Lian not know that Zhuowen was unwilling in his heart? Although she hadn't known Zhuowen for a long time, she also knew that the young man before her was extremely principled in doing things. If it wasn't related to him, he would absolutely not interfere. But if it was related to his own matters, this Zhuowen would absolutely risk his life. Qing Lian knew that Zhuowen cared so much about her, because she had helped Zhuowen quite a bit in the past, so he had a much better impression of her. On the other hand, Hong Lian was someone who had nothing to do with Zhuowen. With Zhuowen's personality, he didn't want to get involved in other people's business. Qing Lian bit her lower lip as a trace of pleading appeared in her eyes. Zhuowen, I beg you to save my junior sister. Otherwise, once she falls into Su Liang's hands, she'll probably end up in a very miserable state. After a moment of silence, Zhuowen nodded. Since Miss Qing Lian has requested it, it would be rather unreasonable of me to refuse. Tell me where Su Liang has gone. Seeing Zhuowen agree, Qing Lian let out a sigh of relief. She smiled sweetly and pointed to the dense forest in front of them. She said, Su Liang and junior sister Hong Lian fled in this direction. That Su Liang is extremely fast. You need to hurry over. Otherwise it will be too late. Nodding, Zhuowen waved his right hand and summoned the reverse spirit puppet from nearby. He surrounded Qing Lian and said, This puppet is at the peak of the ultimate king realm. Stay here and recover. The puppet will protect you. I'll be going first. With that, lightning flickered on Zhuowen's back, and a pair of large wings of lightning appeared. With a few flashes, he vanished into the dense forest ahead. A complicated expression appeared in Qing Lian's eyes. as she watched the figure vanish into the distance. Back in the ancient dwelling, the young man before her had been far weaker than her. Although Zhuowen was not bad at that time, he had yet to reach a breathtaking level. However, over 2 years later, the young man before her had actually grown so quickly. He hadn't relied on any organization or resources, relying solely on himself. Not only had he broken through to the ultimate king realm, his strength had far surpassed hers. Perhaps this is a heaven-sent genius. If senior sister Luo Xing knew about Zhuowen's current strength, she probably wouldn't ignore him like she did in the past. Qing Lian murmured softly. Swoosh swoosh. 2 figures, one fleeing and one pursuing, flashed through the dense forest, causing many birds and beasts to roar in the depths of the forest. When the infuriated origin beasts sensed the presence of these 2 figures, they all quieted down and hid far away, not daring to approach. Little sister Red Lotus, why are you running? I, Su Liang, promise you that as long as you give me your origin Yin, I won't take your life. Moreover, after this battle for the origin Qi Tower, I will personally go to the Jade Maiden Star Court and formally marry you, so you don't have to worry too much about your chastity. The green-robed young man, Su Liang, who was chasing from behind, stared fixedly at Red Lotus's graceful figure in front of him. His sinister eyes were full of ridicule. With his strength, it was extremely easy for him to catch up to Red Lotus, but he didn't do so. Instead, he enjoyed the feeling of a cat catching a mouse, especially when he saw the tear-stained face of the beautiful girl in front of him. This made Su Liang even more excited. Su Liang, you shameless, perverted hoodlum. You usually look like a gentleman, but I didn't expect you to be such a despicable person. Formally and formally marry? What right do you have to marry me? If you want my origin Yin, don't even think about it. If I'm caught, I'll directly break my own heart and commit suicide. Red Lotus also saw that Su Liang was playing cat and mouse, and her pretty face was filled with despair. She knew that with her strength of the ultimate emperor realm, she was no match for Su Liang. Su Liang's expression changed slightly when he heard this. He sneered, "Humph. Whether you're willing or not, I, Su Liang, will take your origin Yin. Even if you commit suicide, I have a way to get your origin Yin from your corpse. If you want to commit suicide, you can do so now. Otherwise, I won't have to waste my energy chasing after you." Red Lotus's pretty face turned deathly pale when she heard this. She instantly understood what Su Liang wanted to do. Even if she died, Su Liang wouldn't let her corpse go. Red Lotus's heart was filled with fear when she thought about how her corpse was going to be ravaged by this person behind her. This Su Liang is a pervert. I can't fall into his hands or else. Red Lotus didn't dare to think about it any further. After Su Liang's threat, Red Lotus's desire to die had completely disappeared. What she wanted now was to meet her senior sister Luo Xing from the Jade Maiden Celestial Court in the forest and save her from the bastard Su Liang. Forget it. I'm not playing anymore. I'll just catch you and take your origin Yin. Soon, a trace of impatience appeared on Su Liang's face. He took several steps in the air and turned into a series of afterimages. In an instant, he had closed the distance between him and Red Lotus. Soon, he was only a few feet away from her. Red Lotus's pretty face turned deathly pale when she heard the sound of something breaking through the air behind her. She bit her lower lip and slapped her Qingquan bag with her jade-like hand. She threw out many defensive spirit treasures, but unfortunately, they were only medium and high-grade spirit treasures. There are quite a few spirit treasures in your Qingquan bag, but they're all trash. They can't stop me at all, haha. Su Liang laughed out loud. With a sweep of his right hand, a powerful force sent the incoming spiritual treasures flying. With a leap, he arrived behind Hong Lian in an instant. With a slap of his hand, he slammed it onto Hong Lian's shoulder. Puffed! Red Lotus spat out a mouthful of blood. Her pretty face was drained of color. Her delicate body trembled and fell from the sky like a withered leaf. Fortunately, Su Liang's attack was very measured. He didn't intend to seriously injure Red Lotus, so Red Lotus still had some strength left. She twisted her slim waist in midair. Just as she was about to hit the ground, She dissipated the force and knelt on one knee. Whoosh! Su Liang rushed over and stopped not far away. He looked mockingly at Red Lotus, who was trembling like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. A strange light flashed in his eyes. Hee. Once I take Red Lotus Vital Een, my Dark Een finger will reach perfection. Furthermore, I can use the Vital Een of the Extreme Een body to break through to the peak of the second wheel of the Ultimate Emperor realm. If I'm lucky, I might even be able to reach the third wheel of the Ultimate Emperor realm. Su Liang's eyes burned with passion when he thought of the legends of the Extreme Een body and its various benefits. He suddenly took a step forward, and his right hand formed a claw as he extended it towards Red Lotus. It's over. What should I do now? Red Lotus' mind went blank as she stared at Su Liang's approaching claw. Her delicate body trembled violently as she stood rooted to the spot. Her beautiful eyes were filled with dense mist. Swish! Just as Su Liang's claw was about to make contact with Red Lotus' delicate body, there was a sharp sound of something tearing through the air. Soon after, a strange streak of blood-red light shot through the air and headed straight for Su Liang's chest. Su Liang's eyelids twitched. His claw that had originally been aimed at Red Lotus suddenly changed direction and slammed into the streak of blood-red light. Thump! 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 The tremendous force caused Su Liang's eyes to shrink. He couldn't help but take a dozen steps back. He stared at the dense forest behind him with a gloomy expression and said, "Who is it?" To actually launch a sneak attack. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.